Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Greek Mythology, God of Fire and Craftsmen. Chapter 101 Stallion Poseidon Gets Gaia. Hephaestus heard this, turned his eyes to the pair of siblings, and asked, Artemis, Apollo, have you thought about it? This is not a joke. Colluded to overthrow the king of the gods. If you fail, you should know what will happen. Artemis took the initiative to step forward, and replied calmly and firmly. Of course, Hephaestus, we've already thought it through. But we're not in a hurry to form an alliance. I think we'll talk about it in detail after we've dealt with the invading gods and demons from the abyss of hell. The voice fell. Apollo also said, I think so too, Hephaestus, you saved my life, please don't question my determination to repay you. There is a kind of indomitable firmness in the eyes of the siblings. Athena on the side looked pale. There is a lot of credit for her. Seeing this, Hephaestus stared at the two for a moment, and smiled undeniably. Okay, however, this matter is far from being as simple as it appears on the surface. Gaia is behind Zeus. It is not so easy for us to overthrow him. Artemis, you can think about it after you go back. Not long ago, after seeing the two original gods, Nyx and Gaia. Hephaestus was aware of this problem. But he is not afraid. With the system close by, he will be able to step into the original state sooner or later. At that time, even with Gaia's support, he will be able to depose Zeus from the throne. We all know this and worry about it as well. Athena also had a sad cloud on her brows. With just a few of us, we can't compete with Gaia, and it is impossible not to get the support of the original god. So I have been thinking, should I choose Hades as the king of gods first, so that at least we can get the goddess of the night for us? That's a big help. She looked at Hephaestus again. As long as you buy enough time, I think you will break through to the original god state sooner or later. Prometheus will not be wrong. The four of them got together like this and discussed for a while. Athena took the Artemis siblings away. They need to watch their tracks now. The secret meeting with Hephaestus must not be exposed. And it wasn't long before they left. When Hephaestus was about to set up a magic barrier to practice. Outside the door, suddenly there was another low voice. Vulcan, Hephaestus, could you let me in for a moment? This voice sounds familiar to Hephaestus. Think back briefly. He can be sure that this is the Sea Emperor Poseidon. Why is he here? Hephaestus frowned in confusion. He heard that Poseidon lowered his voice on purpose, as if he was afraid of being noticed by others. It's too strange to be so thieves. Hephaestus thought about it, and opened the door anyway. He was curious about what the overlord of the sea wanted from him. When Poseidon saw Hephaestus open the door, he smiled all over his face. Great, her faith, you left the council too early, and I still want to have a good talk with you. The enthusiasm in the words seemed to be talking to an old friend for many years. And his eyes were still looking straight into the room, as if he wanted to go in. I don't know what the Sea Emperor wants from me. Hephaestus stopped at the door, not intending to move his body. Poseidon's tone turned mysterious. Well, there is naturally a good thing. But, can we go in and talk again? Hephaestus, believe me, I have no malicious intentions. There was a moment of silence. Hephaestus stepped aside. Come in. Poseidon smiled, rubbed his hands, and walked in quickly. Closed the door. The two sat face to face. Hephaestus poured himself a drink and sipped. At this time, shouldn't the Emperor of the Sea discuss important matters with Hades and the King of the Gods? Why did he come to find me? It's really inconceivable. Poseidon's purple eyes flashed brilliantly, and he said with a smile. Resisting the gods and demons of the abyss, there is nothing to discuss. We are gathered here, and Cronus can't make waves at all. Hephaestus, young Vulcan, I think with your ingenuity, you should be able to guess where I am coming from. For what? Hephaestus remained expressionless. I can't guess, so just say it. Poseidon immediately felt a little embarrassed. However, his complexion soon became dignified, and he said seriously. Well, Hephaestus, I came here to form an alliance with you to deal with Zeus. I know you are very powerful. If we form an alliance, we will definitely push Zeus from the position of the king of the gods. This sentence is over. Make Hephaestus a little funny. This Zeus is really not popular enough. Not only the children are thinking of overthrowing him, but the two brothers are also thinking of dealing with him. I know, Hephaestus, you are now an ally of my brother Hades. But it doesn't matter, you will change your mind, because I will give enough sincerity. Poseidon continued. For example, I can marry my daughter Lot to you, Hephaestus, her beauty is absolutely suitable for you, and you will be a pair that makes all the gods envy. Neptune set out conditions. Too bad Hephaestus wasn't interested. There is nothing else but strength. Quote. With all due respect, Neptune. Hephaestus put down his wine glass and said lightly. Behind Pluto is the goddess of the night, and behind Zeus is the mother of all gods. And you, the only one among the three without the support of the original god, seems to have no reason for me to form an alliance with you. When Poseidon heard this, he was not angry, but just smiled mysteriously and approached Hephaestus. You are wrong, Hephaestus, I have already dealt with Gaia. If the cards are reshuffled, Gaia will support me on the throne instead of Zeus. You must understand this. Get these two words, extremely ambiguous. Hephaestus was also taken aback. For some reason, he suddenly remembered. In Greek mythology, Gaia, the mother of the earth, and Poseidon, the emperor of the sea, had a child. For example, the maelstrom monster Charybdis he met honors before. Nailed it. It turns out that Poseidon gave Gaia a pillow breeze. Hephaestus figured this verse out and couldn't help but be in awe. It seems that this servant of the sea emperor is indeed skilled. How is it, Hephaestus? Seeing the change in Vulcan's expression, Poseidon asked. Hephaestus shook his head slightly upon hearing this. Even with Gaia's support, he doesn't want to form an alliance with Poseidon. Neptune, I will support you to overthrow Zeus. But there is no need to form an alliance. No matter who you or Hades becomes the king of gods in the future, I will not participate, nor do I want to participate. He knew why Poseidon came to win him over. One is to overthrow Zeus. The second is to reduce a powerful enemy. After all, he is now on the bright side, but he supports Hades, the king of the underworld. Now he directly made his words clear, not interfering with who is the king of gods, which is tantamount to allowing Poseidon to achieve his goal. As predicted, Poseidon, who was rejected, smiled unabated, looked quite satisfied, nodded and said, well then, Hephaestus, if you change your mind, you can come to me anytime. In fact, even if there is no alliance, my daughter Lot can still marry you. Of course, if you don't want to, then forget it. Quote. Hephaestus laughed and said nothing. At this time, Poseidon stood up. Then I should go, Hephaestus, please keep our pleasant conversation a secret, and don't let my dear brother Hades and my dear brother Zeus know, okay? Quote. Neptune, don't worry, Hephaestus replied. Just like that, Poseidon pushed open the door, took 2 steps, and disappeared directly into the corridor. This conversation with Poseidon let Hephaestus get a lot of useful information. For example, Poseidon is also planning to be the king of the gods, and the relationship between Gaia and Zeus is not so strong. As these pieces of information accumulate, Hephaestus can probably understand Zeus' current situation. It can be said that there are many enemies around, and it is not optimistic. Hades, Poseidon, and Cronus in the abyss of hell, including his alliance with Athena, the goddess of hunting, and the god of light, are all trying to overthrow the rule of the 3 generations of god kings, whether openly or secretly. Naturally, this environment is very favorable to him. The more enemies Zeus had, the less he could draw his hand against him. And he can also take advantage of this opportunity to develop rapidly. The right way is to securely achieve the original divine realm. Early the next morning, Hephaestus awoke from his dream. After practicing in a dream all night, I didn't feel tired at all, but my whole body was full of strength and refreshed. Just as he was washing up, he planned to talk to Hecate about his magic perception. Suddenly, a group of people blocked the door. The leader is a burly god, followed by 4 girls in blue skirts. Hephaestus was startled when he saw this. And the leading god said with great interest at this time, "Noble Vulcan, I am sent by the Sea Emperor Poseidon." He turned sideways slightly, fully exposed the 4 girls behind him in front of the blonde young man, and introduced, "These are the 4 perfect sea nymphs, Atea, Hackney, Kaline, and Pedora. Please accept this gift from the great Sea Emperor Poseidon." His voice fell. "BHBB." The 4 girls immediately took a step forward, bowed and saluted, and said in a clear and melodious voice, "I have seen the noble Vulcan." Hephaestus scratched his head, studying them. These 4 sea fairies all look extremely watery and delicate, with fair and delicate skin, and eyes as clear as lakes. Moreover, their eyes are full of cute shyness. Why did Poseidon come to learn from Hades to do this? Hephaestus thought to himself, but he didn't refuse, and said, I see, please convey my thanks to the Sea Emperor for me. Sea Emperor Poseidon did this, obviously trying to win him over, or in other words, rewarding him for yesterday's promise. If he doesn't accept it, Poseidon will definitely be worried. Yes, the god withdrew respectfully, and the 4 sea nymphs stood shyly in front of Hephaestus, looking down at the ground, their hearts beating rapidly. The blonde young man in front of them, their future master, was the most handsome god they had ever seen. Just looking at it will make your heart beat faster. You 4, come with me. Quote, Hephaestus led them to Hecate, the goddess of magic. He intends to hand over the 4 sea nymphs to Hecate for training. After all, they are Poseidon's people, so they should be careful no matter what. After training, it is safer to wait on them with them. Come to the door. Hephaestus found Hecate talking to some of the lesser gods of the underworld. So I stood in front of the door and waited for a while. Hecate is the vice lord of the underworld, the second in command, has a high status, and he is naturally busy with government affairs. Especially when the gods and demons of the abyss will attack at any time, when Mount Olympus and the gods of the sea gather in the underworld. Didn't wait a while. The little gods of the underworld left the room. Passing by the door, he saluted Hephaestus respectfully and left immediately. Hecate also stepped out, her skirt fluttering, exuding a scent of fragrance. After seeing the 4 sea nymphs, she was a little puzzled. Hephaestus, who are these? Hephaestus smiled. Poseidon gave me the gift, he is the same as Pluto, he wants to win me over. I have no experience, so I give it to you for training and training. Sea Emperor Poseidon. Hecate was a little surprised. It is self-evident what the purpose is to win over Hephaestus. She glanced at the sea fairies, nodded and said, they're all middle gods, it's okay. Then they will be left to you, Hecate. When did I let you down? Just come and pick them up in a few days. Hecate said. She didn't feel jealous about it. After all, Hephaestus is so powerful now, it would be too embarrassing not to have fairies around him. And this kind of thing is extremely normal in the god realm. It's like a wealthy family has a maid. Come on, you guys, come and see madam. Hephaestus spoke to some sea nymphs. The 4 sea nymphs were very obedient, and immediately saluted Hecate. I have seen you, madam. Hecate's cheeks quickly turned red again, shining brightly. This time there was no resistance. After all, she had indeed become the wife of Hephaestus, and Jia Ding had to get used to this title. The other side, a side hall of Hades' palace. Zeus, the king of the gods, was talking with Aphrodite, the god of love and beauty. This woman's peerless beauty and graceful figure are among the best in Mount Olympus. Looking at the whole world, there are not many goddesses who can stand shoulder to shoulder with her. Just one stop here. The air seemed to become hot and dry. An unknown light flashed in Zeus's eyes, staring at the goddess standing in front of him. Do you know why I asked you here? Aphrodite. The latter shook his head lightly, and made a melodious voice like fairy music. I don't know, please ask the king of God to clarify. Zeus said, I want you to help me, drop the Vulcan god Hephaestus. These words made Aphrodite tremble slightly. She had also seen this handsome Vulcan in the inner palace of Hades before. Also know the opponent's strength. Therefore, Aphrodite was in a bit of a dilemma. King of God, how could I be his opponent? I heard that before Vulcan, the 3 swords killed Typhon, the ancestor of all monsters. Zeus's eyes were filled with lightning, and he stood up, exuding an unparalleled arrogance. You don't need to fight him, use your power to seduce him, and lead him to any place except Hades' palace, I will solve him. Several times failed to solve this serious problem. Zeus's patience was reaching its limit. Especially this time he was contradicted in front of the gods and lost face, which made him even more angry. So, this time he decided to do it himself, just to be sure. Hearing this, Aphrodite knew that Zeus was determined to kill her, and her expression froze slightly. Yes, this subordinate obeys. Soon, she withdrew from the hall and went to Hephaestus' residence. At that time, Hephaestus just came back from discussing magic with Hecate. There are still patches of bright-colored lip marks on the cheeks and neck. As for him, he still had some ideas. But because Hecate had to go to work and didn't have so much time, he had to turn around. Quote, "You have been following me for so long with your head hidden and your tail showing. Did I drag you out, or did you come out by yourself?" Suddenly, in the long corridor, Hephaestus stopped and spoke in one direction. A cold light flashed in his eyes. From the very beginning, he was keenly aware that someone was following him. Moreover, it seems to be intentionally or unintentionally leaking breath. The voice fell. Fragrance once. A slim figure appeared in front of Hephaestus and said in a voice, "Vulcan is really powerful. It seems that I haven't mastered my hidden magic yet." Hephaestus stared at her, frowning slightly. The person in front of her was a blonde, blue-eyed, graceful beauty, with porcelain white skin, wearing a thin veil, and bare, boneless and white feet, stepping in midair, spotless. No matter how you look at it, this woman is incomparably perfect, without any flaws. She is completely natural and extremely beautiful. Once she reveals her figure, it seems that everything in the world is eclipsed. Moreover, the realm is not low, and he is a master god. Hephaestus recalled a little. "I thought that I had seen her in the team of gods led by Zeus yesterday. Lord of Mount Olympus, with such beauty, it seems that you are the god of love and beauty, Aphrodite." Hephaestus immediately analyzed and said. Aphrodite smiled charmingly, twisted her slender waist and walked towards him. Unexpectedly, this was also seen by Vulcan. "That's right, I am Aphrodite, the god of love and beauty. Hephaestus, I don't know if I can't buy you a glass of wine." Yesterday, she would have said something else. But after seeing the lip marks on the young man's cheeks and neck, he couldn't help but chuckle. "You are so romantic, Hephaestus." Hephaestus was expressionless, wiping the marks off his cheeks, and didn't respond to her smiles or frowns. The god of love and beauty, Aphrodite, knows who this person is best. In Greek mythology, she is the authentic wife of the real Vulcan. Although she has a peerless beauty, she is very indulgent and does not obey women's morals. When she has a husband, she also combines with many male gods and gives birth to many children. For such a slut, Hephaestus did not like, nor was he interested. "If it's okay, Aphrodite, I'm sorry, you can leave now. I don't have time to entertain you, and I don't have time to drink," Hephaestus said flatly. Aphrodite was a little embarrassed. For some reason, she felt that Hephaestus had a big opinion of her. However, this is the first meeting between them, and she has never offended each other. "Hephaestus, did I offend you somewhere? If so, I apologize to you. Don't be angry," Aphrodite said again, and at the same time, unleash his own power of love on Hephaestus. A mysterious power shrouded the young Vulcan. However, layers of main god domains appeared all over Hephaestus in an instant, forming a solid barrier to keep this force out. "Secretly use your power of love to manipulate me, Aphrodite. I don't know if that counts as an offense." Hephaestus' eyes suddenly became extremely cold. A bitter chill spread in the air, and Aphrodite's charming smile froze, and she couldn't help but shuddered. That's when Aphrodite seduces Hephaestus. Underworld, in front of the palace where the king of gods temporarily lives. A dignified and elegant blonde beauty walked slowly, full of majesty and nobility. Behind him was a maid with a beautiful face and a lovely face, wearing a colorful dress. It is Hera, queen of the gods, and her confidant, Iris, the rainbow goddess. At this time, Iris stayed outside the hall to wait. Queen Hera stepped into the hall alone. And Zeus, the king of gods, stood with his hands behind his back at this moment, quietly looking at the sky of the underworld, as if he was thinking about something. Noticing Hera's arrival, he didn't take any action. Hera stopped 3 steps behind him, and asked, "God King, why are you doing something stupid again?" There was a moment of silence. Zeus still didn't turn around, and asked flatly, "Hera, what are you talking about?" Hera answered immediately, "You know what I'm talking about. Hephaestus, why are you attacking him at this time in this place?" As soon as she set up the rear and came to the underworld, she received the news that Zeus was going to deal with Hephaestus. So he rushed to see Zeus without stopping. Zeus turned around, his eyes flashed with lightning. "What's the matter? Hera, are you thinking of you and him, the mother-child relationship?" There was some sarcasm in his tone. Hera heard it, and suddenly became angry. This is obviously a mockery of her abandonment of Hephaestus in the first place. But she also knew that this was not the time to be angry. Forcibly suppressing her anger, Hera calmed herself down and continued. Let's all calm down, Zeus. Losing your temper now will only cause bad things. You must also know how powerful Hephaestus is now. 3 moves to kill Typhon. How many main gods can do this? Even if you do it yourself, you may not be able to win him. Even with a few main gods, I dare say he can escape calmly. Say these words. Zeus showed disdain. Just as he was about to speak, Hera immediately interrupted his words. Don't say it's impossible, Zeus. When you and Hades were fighting the most intensely, didn't you lead someone to ambush him? Didn't he run away? Do you think the current Hephaestus will be weaker than Hades? What's more, this is Hades. Hades can immediately detect any disturbance, and Hephaestus belongs to Hades. When you make a move, the situation will definitely be a terrible mess. Quote. Hera walked up to Zeus, looked straight into his eyes and said. The disdain on Zeus's face gradually disappeared, and he snorted coldly. According to you, Hera, should I indulge him like this? Let him trample on my dignity and prestige. Let him and Hades working together as a traitor, colluding together to deal with me. Hera shook her head. Of course not, but we have better ways besides killing. Zeus looked at her and asked, what kind of knife? Hera's face was full of color, and she said with confidence. Anyway, Zeus, Hephaestus is my son. We have a good chance of winning him over. The hatred between you and him is far from the point of life and death. You just lost face. I think it is worth sacrificing this bit of face in exchange for an extremely powerful Lord God on Mount Olympus. Quote. The reason for saying this. It was because Hera knew that Zeus didn't care about the life or death of the Hyperion family. Even if you care a little bit, weigh the pros and cons. Now that Hyperion is dead, the 3 mothers and daughters of Thea who stayed behind have also become Hephaestus maids. It would be more cost-effective to subdue Hephaestus. After all, this can exchange Mount Olympus for a main god who is bigger than Hyperion. What you said does have some truth, Hera. Zeus thought about it calmly, and stroked the beard on his chin. But I'm afraid you still don't know how arrogant that kid Hephaestus is, trying to win him over. He might not agree. Hera giggled, walked to the table and sat down. It's not easy. You marry Aphrodite to him, how could he not agree? I don't believe in the gods of love and beauty, still can't hold his heart. This made Zeus frown slightly. When I think of that graceful and alluring, perfect figure, an impulse arises spontaneously. Zeus shook his head and refused. No, Aphrodite cannot marry him. Let's replace it with Athena. The goddess of wisdom can use her wisdom to subdue Hephaestus, and Athena's beauty is not inferior. Hear Zeus' tone. A suspicious light flashed in Hera's eyes. With a keen intuition, she noticed something strange. She looked at Zeus, and the latter felt trembling for a while, but there was no flaw on the surface. After a while, Hera with a slightly cold face said, it's not impossible for Athena. Zeus, then you can tell her. Hephaestus, I will have a good talk with him. The voice fell. She got up and took a step, and disappeared into the hall like the wind. Iris, the rainbow goddess, followed her master closely. On the other hand, Venus, who was sent to tempt Faith, was in a dilemma. She is cornered by Hephaestus. The icy chill emanating from the blonde young man in front of her made her feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. The heart seemed to be tightly squeezed by an invisible big hand. Although he is also the main god, but this feeling of oppression. But Aphrodite felt that the other party was more terrifying than God King Zeus. Aphrodite, whether it's because you can't bear the loneliness yourself or because of someone else's instigation, I hope you don't come to me to be stupid again. Let me tell you clearly that I don't have any interest in you. Next time, don't blame me for being so hot. Hephaestus said coldly. If Aphrodite was sent by Zeus, and he happened to be not so vigilant, after being manipulated by love, the consequences can be imagined. I'm afraid it's because of Aphrodite's death that they are willing to die, and they can't wish for it. Aphrodite turned pale slightly, unable to speak. At this time, a graceful and dignified female voice came from not far away. Hephaestus, I still want to talk to you for a while, but I didn't expect you to be with Cupid. It seems that I really came at a bad time. Hephaestus and Cupid looked away at the same time. Immediately, in the corridor, Hera, the queen of the gods, and Iris, the goddess of the rainbow, came. Meet this mother. Hephaestus restrained his coercion, and couldn't help muttering in his heart. Why has there been an endless stream of people looking for him since Typhon was killed? It turned out that the Queen of God arrived. Since I was looking for the Vulcan, then I will be rude and leave first. Feel the pressure disappear. Aphrodite breathed a sigh of relief, saluted Hera respectfully, then hurriedly turned around and left, taking this opportunity to get away. Hephaestus glanced at her, ignoring her. Good boy, I just heard you say that you can destroy flowers with your hands. How did Venus offend you? Hera walked up to the handsome young man and asked with a smile on her face. Although the appearance of Hephaestus has changed slightly, but the breath is not wrong, Hera recognizes it very clearly. This is the child born by herself. Nothing worth mentioning. After the great gods, you came to me. Why? Hephaestus did not tell what had just happened. Simply put, he has no basis for trust in this mother. If it wasn't for the fact that the rainbow goddess was not sent to the underworld to report to the underworld last time, Hephaestus might not even pay attention to her now. Hera was very understanding and didn't ask further. Okay. Hephaestus, I want to talk to you about something important. Is this your room? Let's go in and talk slowly. As you wish. Rainbow goddess is still guarding outside. Only Hera and Hephaestus enter the room. The latter unhurriedly poured 2 glasses of wine as a treat. Hera sat quietly on the side, looking at her son. Her phoenix eyes were full of smiles. The more she looked, the more satisfied she was with Hephaestus. I regret it even more. When she was on trial at the Temple of Justice, she should have forcibly kept the child by her side instead of adopting it to the goddess of the sea, Thesis. Hephaestus, what do you think of Athena, the goddess of wisdom? Hera suddenly asked without warning. The sudden mention of Athena made Hephaestus startled. What does the Queen of God mean? I can be the master and promise you Athena, the goddess of wisdom. Hera picked up the drink and said slowly, as long as you agree to return to Mount Olympus, don't rush to refuse, the benefits are beyond your imagination. Hephaestus, you are my son, I will not harm you, you need to know that. Returned to Mount Olympus. Hephaestus slowly put down the flagon. Then quietly sat down opposite Hera. At the same time, I was thinking, seeing that Zeus's plan has changed, it will make God win him over later. Moreover, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, is used as a bargaining chip. After being the gods, it is impossible for Hera to communicate with Zeus in every move, especially to win over an enemy of Mount Olympus. Hephaestus affirmed this. Now the pattern of heaven and earth is changing, and the holy mountain needs the support of a powerful god like you. No one can tell what will happen in the future. Hephaestus, I mean, the seat of the god king is not static. Otherwise, it will definitely not be Zeus' turn to sit on it. And you, the best and most powerful god of the younger generation, and the child of Hera after my gods, Hephaestus, your future achievements are limitless. Do you know what I mean? Hera looked solemn, and continued majestically. It actually hints that Hephaestus may sit on the throne of God King in the future. Hera. Hephaestus felt amused when he heard the words. Without the support of the original god, to be the king of the gods, isn't this daydreaming? Although he thought so in his heart, Hephaestus did not say it. Of course I understand, Queen of God. Hephaestus pondered for a moment pretending to be worried, and said, but, I have already made a good relationship with the demon goddess Hecate. Hecate. Hera chuckled and shook her head. With your strength, what's the point of having more wives? Counting me, Zeus has 7 wives, and he secretly hooked up with many goddesses and women. As long as you have strength, you can also have all this, no one can interfere with you. Her words were filled with dissatisfaction with Zeus. After hearing Hera's emotions, Hephaestus was moved in his heart and fell silent. After a while, he stared at Hera. God Queen, do you know the current situation of Zeus? Hera couldn't understand this sentence. How to say it? ... I understand what the Queen of God thinks. Hephaestus deliberately lowered his voice. I just want to tell you that there are many people who want to overthrow Zeus and replace him as the king of gods. The situation of Zeus is very bad. Hera was silent. An imperceptible sly light flashed in Hephaestus' eyes. And as the God Empress said, the future is full of variables, and the position of the God King is not static. Perhaps, you can also become the God King. As your son, I will be your strongest backing. Quote. Through the conversation just now, Hephaestus already knew that Hera was very dissatisfied with Zeus. Moreover, there is also the idea of his own son taking his place. That being the case, Hephaestus can turn it around and instigate Hera. Once the scourge of ambition and desire for power breeds, it cannot be contained. Even if it is a god, there is no way to resist it. Otherwise, there will be no upheavals in the seizure of power, and the change of kings from generation to generation. To this day, Pluto, Sea Emperor, and the original god behind them are still fighting openly and secretly. The tide of power and desire for power engulfed the gods, and Hera could not be an exception. The premise is that someone has to fan the fire in her heart. And Hephaestus did just that. When Hera heard these words, her pupils trembled, and her eyes were a little unbelievable. Queen of God, form an alliance with me. Seeing this, Hephaestus continued to speculate. A tyrannical god king like Zeus will step down sooner or later. The future will belong to us. There is no doubt about this. Hera was silent. The heartbeat can't help but speed up. Needless to say, she was moved. How do you say this, child? I never wanted to be a god king. Hera stood up slowly, with her back to Hephaestus, with a tremor in her voice. However, in comparison, you are more suitable to be the king of the gods. Queen of God, think about it, you have been ruling Mount Olympus with Zeus, but the gods respect you far more than you Zeus. They will only be afraid of Zeus, because he is tyrannical, cruel, and ruthless. Believe me, God Queen, you will be a more wise and mighty god king than Zeus. Hephaestus also rose to his feet. There was an irresistible magic about his words. Hera heard this, and the flame of desire in her heart expanded rapidly. And the expression gradually calmed down, and the phoenix eyes flickered. You are right, my child. Zeus is too cruel, he is no different from Cronus. He even swallowed Métis and her unborn child. That's why Arnolds are enmity with him, and sooner or later he will be deserted. Quote. Her tone gradually became firm and steady. This fire is already burning. Hephaestus hooked his lips and smiled. Then, let us form an alliance, the great queen of the gods, Hera. Overthrow Zeus and start the era of the fourth generation of Hera God King. In any case, turn Hera against him first. In this way, Zeus will be able to lose a major pillar, and there will be nothing else, and we will wait for Zeus to be overthrown. After some secret discussions, Hephaestus and Hera decided to make a secret alliance and proceed as usual. Then, full of joy, Hera left with the ideal of starting the era of the fourth Hera God King, and returned to Zeus. Zeus, who had been waiting for the news, saw Hera coming back, got up and asked, Hera, how did you talk with him? Does he agree to go back to the mountain? Hera stared at Zeus's face, and a burst of joy suddenly surged in her heart. All along, it was Zeus who kept betraying her. But this time, she wanted to get it back with interest. Let Zeus also experience the feeling of being betrayed. Soon Hera calmed down and replied calmly, I negotiated with him personally, of course he will agree. But he doesn't believe you. Zeus frowned. Don't believe me. Hera nodded. That's right. He said that he can only trust you if you show your sincerity. In short, you have had so many conflicts, and you really should express it first. Athena, have you notified? Zeus snorted coldly. I'm not afraid. This king has already decided to let him go, yet he dares to negotiate terms first. Hera walked up to him. Okay, now that Hephaestus can't come back, I just need a word from you. Zeus, don't lose the big because of small things. Zeus was silent for a while, and took a long breath, as if he wanted to spit out all his depression. Pass down the order, let all the gods of the holy mountain who came to the underworld come here to gather. Half a quarter later, the god of love, the goddess of hunting, the god of light, the messenger Hermes, the goddess of wisdom and other gods entered the hall like wild geese and stood neatly. Zeus sat on the first seat, and Hera accompanied him. Wait for everyone to gather and be quiet. Only then did Zeus speak slowly. After consideration, this king has made a decision, and I'm announcing it to you now. Athena, come out. The majestic words made the faces of the gods extremely serious. I thought to myself, what decision? And Athena walked up to Zeus according to her words, her expression was peaceful and peaceful. I have decided to marry my daughter, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, to the son of the queen of gods, the god of fire and craftsman, Hephaestus. Zeus speaks out his decision. All the gods showed expressions of surprise and shock. He wanted to fight and kill this Hephaestus before, why suddenly, he wants to marry his daughter to him? What happened? Zeus stared at the goddess standing in front of him again. Athena, do you agree? Athena looked confused. She didn't know what happened. Zeus didn't inform her in advance. But Athena thought about it, without any hesitation, bowed her head and agreed. Since it is the order of the god king, Athena should obey it. She had no opinion at all. After all, in Athena's view, Hephaestus is qualified to be her husband. Whether it is appearance or strength. And this is more beneficial to the alliance. Very good. Seeing Athena's consent, Zeus relaxed his stern face. After the gods and demons in the abyss of hell are dealt with, I will give you two a marriage. At that time, I will hold a grand wedding for you. Zeus' decision soon spread in the underworld. Everyone was surprised, because they all knew before that the relationship between Hephaestus and Zeus was very bad. This pair of enemies suddenly got married in the blink of an eye, and everyone would be surprised. This moment, the inner hall of Hades' palace. Hades and Poseidon are in talks. The gods of the underworld and the gods of the ocean sat on both sides of the long table, discussing in groups of 3 or 4. Our good little brother really has a bit of a heroic demeanor, he can bend and stretch. No wonder, he is the king of gods and gods, I have to admire. Goddess of wisdom Athena, tisk tisk. Poseidon said with a half smile. A pair of purple eyes shone with light, making it difficult to understand what he was thinking in his heart. However, it can still be seen that his mood is very complicated. Compare. Hades, who was sitting on the dark throne, was much calmer, sneered twice, and continued. Athena, the goddess of wisdom. It is indeed a good bargaining chip. However, in my opinion, Zeus may not be able to catch fish when he throws bait. We, the god of fire, are not some characters who are willing to succumb to others and be ordered by others. Quote. With his knowledge of Hephaestus, it is impossible for Hephaestus to return to Mount Olympus because of Athena and be a lackey of Zeus. This is mostly false and obsequious, trying to take advantage of it. Therefore, Hades is sure that Zeus must have lost his wife and lost his army by then. Hear Hades' analysis. Poseidon narrowed his purple eyes, suddenly thought of something, smiled lightly and shook his head and said, Brother sees clearly, brother sees clearly. Just when the gods were talking about it, Hecate, the goddess of magic who sat at the head of the gods of the underworld, suddenly got up, looked at Hades and said, Pluto, please allow me to leave first. Her voice was clear and bright, echoing constantly in the hall. The eyes of the gods all moved to this beautiful red-robed witch in an instant. The faces of the gods of the underworld are even more wonderful. They all know that Hecate is the original match of Vulcan. Now Zeus, the king of the gods, married Vulcan and Athena, where should the original match be placed? I'm afraid I've overturned the jar of vinegar, and I'm going to get angry. Pluto also had the same idea in his heart, but he knew that Hecate was measured, so he nodded and said, yes. Hecate bowed and took a step back, calmly leaving the place with a blank expression on his face. As soon as she left, there was a lot of discussion. The gods of the sea and the gods of the underworld got together to gossip. When Hecate finds Hephaestus, he is studying the fragments of the kingdom of God obtained from the goddess of Styx. Now his strength is getting higher and higher, and he is almost approaching the peak of the main god. It's time to start researching the composition of the kingdom of God. However, Hecate's appearance out of thin air forced his plan to be suspended temporarily. A sudden shadow looms over it. Hephaestus looked up and found Hecate standing in front of him like a ghost with a frosty face. His bright red robe and long hair were windless and automatic. Kind of scary. Hecate. What's the matter? Hephaestus asked. Hecate suddenly laughed terribly. It's nothing, I just heard, my fiancé copyright is going to marry another goddess suddenly. I feel a little upset. Cough. Hephaestus coughed dryly and put away the fragments of the kingdom of God. Well, actually, this matter is a bit complicated, do you understand? Hecate, sit down first and listen to my explanation slowly. Hecate said directly. I won't listen, and you don't need to explain. Hephaestus felt awkward. Is this guy going to be blackened? However, at this time, Hecate sat down as promised, and stretched out her slender hand, interlocking fingers with Hephaestus. You don't need to explain anything. Hephaestus, I know, I can't stop Zeus' decision, but... Quote. Her tone suddenly softened. But what? However, I can marry you first, no matter how many wives you have in the future. Hecate said with an extremely firm tone, the first lady will always be me. Hephaestus. He was somewhat surprised by this result. After all, he was married to Athena, and he had never discussed it with Hecate before. And Hecate is jealous. To be able to make such a concession, it seems that he has made a lot of determination. What are you looking at me like that for? Hecate said. It's strange that I would agree to your marriage. That's because Athena is good enough to be worthy of you. Otherwise, if you have the guts to rob me of a man, I might just kill her. Hearing this, Hephaestus' facial muscles twitched. How come I didn't realize this guy was so cruel and merciless before? Hecate continued. Let's get married first, and you don't have to be afraid of Zeus blaming you. If he dares to do something, I will protect you. If Athena disagrees, I will fight her to the death. Her tone was full of seriousness. With her character and strong strength, she can definitely take action against Zeus and fight Athena to the death. Hearing this, Hephaestus smiled helplessly, and immediately said, why are you so impulsive? Athena. She will agree. Hecate finally showed a blooming smile, and said, that's all right. Let her wait slowly, I want to marry you immediately. Come, follow me to see Hades. Soon, Hecate told Hades about it. And Pluto happily agreed. Hecate, the goddess of magic, is the deputy king of the underworld, his right-hand man. Since Hephaestus has such a weight in his heart that this young god can marry first at the risk of offending Zeus, he is of course willing to sponsor. Also, since his alliance with Hephaestus, no gifts have been sent. There are only some materials for forging artifacts and Thea's 3 mothers and daughters. The latter still borrow flowers to present Buddha, which is nothing. Take advantage of this opportunity to cultivate more relationships, which will be useful in the future. Sooner or later, the third battle between heaven and earth to compete for the God King will start. The benefits to him of attracting a powerhouse like Hephaestus are self-evident. 3 days passed. The huge Pluto palace was full of banquets, and it was extremely lively, finished. On the high platform, the dawn full of hope, the silver full moon, and the beautiful rainbow form a strange fairyland. This is the means of Eos, Selene, and Erie. And Apollo, who has mastered the priesthood of music, is playing the lyre, and the wonderful music flows out from his fingertips. And the sea fairies from the sea, not stingy with their singing voice and dancing posture, lead the nymph fairies to sing and dance. The petals and fragrance linger in this world, refreshing. All the gods were happy to drink and celebrate at the banquet table. Even the 3 brothers Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus sat together very rarely. However, Zeus looked stern, unsmiling, and looked very unhappy. Had it only been the wedding of Athena and Hephaestus, he would have raised his glass in blessing. But this is a wedding to the goddess of magic, Hecate. Of course he was upset that his daughter, the king of the gods, was outmatched by this titan. However, at this juncture, he is not easy to get angry, he can only get bored after drinking. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, also came to the wedding. But it's different from Zeus. Together with several goddesses of Artemis, she talked and laughed generously, and didn't seem to care that Hephaestus married another goddess in advance. Soon, Hephaestus and Hecate appeared in costumes. Both of them put on luxurious new clothes. Hephaestus's thick blonde hair was tied up, neat and unrestrained, extremely handsome. A pair of clear blue eyes, soul-stirring. Even Apollo, the most beautiful god of light on Mount Olympus, and Poseidon, the most heroic king of the sea among the 3 god-king brothers, would feel ashamed of themselves. And Hecate's long hair was scrupulously coiled up and covered with jewels, which made her even more conspicuous, who was already glamorous. The blush of her cheeks rose, and she was shy with a little charm, almost overwhelming all the female gods in the audience, and few people could match her. Behind the 2 of them, a group of sea nymphs and nymphs gathered, walking slowly towards the gods. In an instant, the attention of all the gods in the audience was attracted to this place. The appearance of this pair of lovers made the world eclipsed. The bride is so beautiful, almost more beautiful than Aphrodite. The moment of marriage is the most beautiful moment for a bride, and no one needs to go to Hecate at this moment. Handsome Vulcan, a good match for the goddess of magic. It's really enviable. Many gods discussed and cheered. Many nymph fairies and sea fairies are secretly jealous in their hearts. Why are they not married to Vulcan? Hephaestus and Hecate thanked the various gods. Then came to the highest place, sitting in front of the banquet table of the three brothers of the god king, Hera, the queen of the gods, and Persephone, the queen of the underworld. Congratulations, Hephaestus, I offer you a glass of wine. Good boy, your wedding is going to be even more lively than when Zeus and I got married. Pluto and Hera said one after another. I offer a toast to all of you. And to my wedding to Hecate. Hephaestus smiled and picked up a glass of wine. At the same time, I still have some regrets in my heart. At his wedding, the people sitting in front of him were all people who were intriguing and deceitful with him. The same is true for Hera, the only biological mother who has a deep relationship. The person who really treats him well, the sea goddess Thetis, is not there. Although Hephaestus sent a messenger, the news was sent to the sea god palace in the shortest possible time. But Thetis did not come to the wedding. I only told him in the reply letter that I was entangled with some things and couldn't get away temporarily, expressing regret and blessing. And also sent back a piece of beautiful jewelry he had forged as a gift to Hecate. If Hecate hadn't been in a hurry to get married, Hephaestus would have personally gone to the sea god palace to invite someone. Such a major event in life, without the company of close people, no matter how full of ritual and grand it is, it feels like something is missing. Forget it, the next time we get married, I will personally invite Thetis to make up for her. Hephaestus' mind was like lightning. After thinking about this, I just finished drinking a glass of wine. Then, the gods applauded, and there was another burst of cheers. At this time, I'm so nervous. Hephaestus, are you nervous? Hecate, with blushing cheeks, whispered through voice transmission. Relax, give me your hand. Hephaestus put down his wine glass, with a bright smile on his face, and also transmitted sound. Marriage is a top priority, and everyone will be nervous. However, in his 2 lifetimes, especially in this one, he has experienced countless trials and tribulations, so of course he will not be nervous about it. Hecate was nervous because she had a girlish heart. Quote, quote. The shy bride heard the words, and obediently handed her slender hands to the groom beside her. Hephaestus took out the wedding ring he forged, put it on her middle finger, and said slowly, "Oh, the god of fire and craftsmen, Hephaestus, is going to marry the goddess of magic, Hecate. No matter what happens in the future, I swear, I will always be good to her and protect her forever. I will never regret it." This sentence uses the power of law. The entire underworld is constantly reverberating. The banquet fell silent in an instant, staring at the two admiringly. Many sea nymphs and nymphs, including some goddesses, feel almost suffocated. Hecate looked at the ring on her middle finger, and for some reason, her heart felt warm, and her tension was greatly relieved. She looked up at her groom again. Eyes met, Hephaestus gave her an encouraging look. Immediately, Hecate also took out her own ring, and put it on the middle finger of Hephaestus. I, the goddess of magic, Hecate, will marry the god of fire and craftsmen, Hephaestus. No matter what happens in the future, I swear that I will always be good to him, protect him forever, and never change until death, regret. This sentence also uses the power of law, and it keeps echoing in Guangyu of the underworld. Next moment, all the gods shouted fiercely. They witnessed the union of this pair of unparalleled people. Artemis, who was sitting with Athena, kept applauding and smiling, happy for the cousin's wedding. It's just that she was still a little worried about Athena. Wouldn't you be angry if your fiancé copyright married another goddess right after you were granted a marriage? But she was too embarrassed to speak. Benzi always seems to be telling stories. Moreover, Athena seems to really have no ill will. After a long time, drink 3 rounds. All the gods are a little drunk, everyone is drunk. God King Zeus is not so cold anymore. Hephaestus, I think you don't know how powerful this king was back then. Back then, when Hera and I got married, it took more than 300 years just for the bridal chamber wedding night. How? Ordinary gods can't do this. Quote. Zeus starts and blows to Hephaestus. Hera, who was sitting next to him, blushed immediately, and said, "You can't stop your mouth if you drink alcohol. You're really shameless." But Hades, who was originally smiling, heard this sentence, but the smile gradually disappeared. But everyone is questioning whether what Zeus said is true. No one noticed the change except Persephone and Hephaestus. How did Zeus offend Pluto with these words? He was so unhappy. Hephaestus entertained the gods on the surface, thinking to himself in his heart. This wedding reception lasted all day. Before it was over, the new couple Hephaestus and Hecate were driven away by the gods. To be precise, he was driven to the bridal chamber. A moment of spring festival is worth 1,000 gold. Staying at the banquet all the time is no business. After the door was closed tightly, Hephaestus loosened his tight robe to breathe, then walked to the table, calmly picked up the jug, and poured 2 glasses of wine. Lifted up and walked to the bed. Hecate propped her forehead with one hand and lay there halfway. The graceful and exquisite figure is undoubtedly prominent. His eyes were blurred, and his cheeks were still flushed. "Hephaestus, I've been drinking, haven't you had enough?" "My head, hiss, so dizzy, the dream wine," Hecate said coquettishly. Hephaestus sat by the bed and handed her a glass of wine with a faint smile. "This is the last glass, it's famous, come on, let's drink together." "What name?" Hecate hesitated, her cherry lips fluttered, and she still reached out to take the wine glass. "Drink a cup of wine and never part." Hephaestus wrapped his arms around Hecate's and said softly. This is the custom of marrying men and women in his previous life. As for Hecate, although she didn't quite understand what it means to have a cup of wine, she still understood the emotion in it, and with a twinkling of her beautiful eyes, she repeated, "Drink a cup of wine and never part." Then, the two drank the glass of wine together. A war without gunpowder smoke ensues. The wedding banquet outside is still going on. Since the 3 brothers of Zeus fought openly and secretly and went their separate ways, there have been seldom such grand scenes. If according to the past, at most, only the gods of the underworld will participate in this wedding banquet. But this time, because of the invasion of the abyss gods and demons, Zeus and Poseidon led all the gods to come together, and they all wanted to win over Hephaestus, so naturally they had to attend the wedding. Because of this, the wedding was extremely lively. It was not until 3 days and 3 nights later that they dispersed. And that pair of unparalleled people. I also fought fiercely without sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. There is still no sign of a strike. Hades, are you despicable? Hades, you have gone too far this time, stop immediately, or don't blame me, show no mercy. Suddenly, there were bursts of intense fighting sounds outside. The power of the law of attraction has almost spread to the entire underworld. Moreover, it was accompanied by the shouting of several women. The quilt was lifted. The sweat-drenched Hephaestus turned his head and looked out, his eyes flickering. Who's fighting Pluto? It seems to be Demeter. Hecate also showed her delicate face. Her hair was soaked in sweat, sticking strands to her fair cheeks and neck. She was equally puzzled, and called out a name uncertainly. Go out and have a look. Hephaestus felt puzzled, wiped off his sweat, jumped out of bed, and disappeared into the room like a gust of wind. The robe next to the bed also disappeared. Come outside. Hephaestus saw several figures fighting in the sky. With his eyesight, it was easy to see who they were. 3 women and 1 man. One of the women is Persephone, queen of the underworld, wearing a very conspicuous green robe. The other one is a plump and hot woman who can be called a devil's gorgeous beauty. Her eyebrows and eyes are 6 points similar to those of the queen of the underworld, and the power of law lingers around her, full of creativity and vitality. The one next to him was a human-shaped flame. If you look carefully, you can see that there is a beauty with gentle eyebrows wrapped in the flames, and she is the most mature among the 3 women. Moreover, the domain she displays is also a flame, but the power of law is completely different from that of Hephaestus. Her flame is full of human fireworks. Burning Hades' nether laws into nothingness is quite terrifying in terms of power. This moment, the 3 women are fighting Hades, the god of death, and the god of sleep. It's hard to beat. Hades also roared angrily. Demeter, do you think I will let Persephone go if I get the help of the big sister? Don't think about it. She is already my healthy person, and no one can take her away from me. These words made the devilish beauty raise her brows and screamed, shameless. Shameless. Hades, you don't even let your own niece go. You're not as good as a beast. However, she couldn't make any sharp attacks. Obviously, the power of law is not good at attacking. Hades ignored her, and shouted to the queen of the underworld, Persephone. Since you came to the underworld, have I ever treated you badly? I even gave you the authority of the queen of the underworld. This will allow you to reach the underworld, the great Tao of the Lord God at its peak. Are you going to fight against me too? Bang boom. A powerful law of the netherworld descended like a mountain and sea, and suppressed it towards the queen of the underworld. Persephone's face was pale, and she cried out in pain, "Who wants your power as queen of the underworld? I will never stay in this dark place. I want to go back to the garden of the world with my mother." However, she didn't have much time to practice after all. The scythe of death alone is enough for her. It can't stop the suppression of Hades' law. It was the main god domain full of human fireworks that quickly spread out and stood in front of her to defuse the blow. Hades, don't go too far. In the realm of the main god, a beautiful woman covered in flames appeared out of thin air and shouted at Hades. She is Hestia, one of the children of the second god king, the famous goddess of Mount Olympus. She is also the sister of the goddess of agriculture, Demeter. After the Titan War, she left Mount Olympus and lived in seclusion alone. This time, she was invited out by her younger sister Demeter, with the purpose of rescuing Persephone, who was kidnapped by Hades. Originally, these two goddesses wanted to secretly take Persephone away. But it was discovered during the process, so they fought with Hades and the god of death and sleeping god. Hestia, Demeter, so it's here to save the empress. It's a pity that this Hestia is mighty, but he is outnumbered, let alone bring two burdens. It is impossible to escape from the underworld. Hephaestus, who was watching the battle on the ground, also cleared his mind at this time. Recognize who these two goddesses are, and comment on the current situation. At the same time, I was thinking, no wonder Zeus didn't even let his second sister Demeter go. The charm of this goddess is indeed great, especially that proud figure. She is definitely the number one on Mount Olympus. As for Persephone, she also inherited this devil figure, and Hades abducted her, which must be one of the important reasons. The two sides fought fiercely. At this moment, all the gods gathered in the underworld came out to investigate and wait and see, including Zeus and Hera, kings of the gods. When Hera saw Demeter, her complexion quickly turned cold, obviously extremely unhappy. "Turn around and leave, leaving only one sentence. Don't hurry up and deal with the mess you made." Zeus snorted coldly and ignored him. Immediately took off into the air, shouted, "Stop it!" Exclamation mark. At the same time, a dazzling and fierce thunder strikes through the middle of the battlefield. Smash the realm of law layer by layer. Directly separate the two sides. This scene shocked many people. The strength of the king of the gods is indeed terrifying. Zeus, the separated Hestia, mother and daughter Demeter, as well as the two brothers Hades and Death, all cast their eyes on the god who was covered in thunder. Zero. Demeter even shouted, "Zeus, you came just in time, let Hades not stop us. I want to take Persephone out of this ghost place." The flames all over Hestia's body disappeared, revealing a slender figure, looking at Zeus calmly, which made Zeus feel an inexplicable pressure. This big sister is powerful and has always lived in seclusion. Unexpectedly, I was invited out of the mountain this time. But Zeus still said, "Demeter, calm down, don't make trouble, now that the enemy is at hand, everything will wait until Cronus is resolved." This is obviously prevarication. Hestia's eyes showed disappointment. And Demeter was startled, and shouted angrily, "Zeus, Persephone is your daughter. Do you just watch her suffer like this? Everything is about the overall situation, Demeter, you should understand." Zeus replied solemnly, "Hades abducted Persephone, which he acquiesced to ease the tension between the brothers. Although the relationship is getting worse and worse now, this matter, at least we have to wait until we leave the underworld. In Hades' territory, robbing the woman he regards as a treasure is just asking for fun. Not to mention the situation where Cronus would attack at any time." Seeing that Zeus didn't support the other party, Hades' cold face softened a lot, and he turned his head to the queen of the underworld in the distance and said, "Persephone, follow me." As soon as he flicked his sleeves, a force of law enveloped the latter. Then, both of them disappeared into the air. Demeter screamed on the spot. Seeing her daughter was arrested again. Demeter screamed, and the main god domain suddenly released, Hades. Give me back Persephone. Just wanted to do it. The hearth goddess Hestia grabbed Demeter's arm and shouted, Stop beating, Demeter. The situation is here, nothing can be done. If Zeus doesn't help, Pluto is powerful, and it's hard to get things done with just the two of them. If you continue to make trouble, there will be no good results. Turned, seeing her sister's restraining eyes, Demeter felt a burst of sadness in her heart, gritted her teeth, and finally did not chase after her. Suddenly, she thought of Dirongbo's cold winter again. Maybe Poseidon is willing to help her. When she cast her eyes on this Neptune, she immediately found that the other party was looking at her jokingly, and there seemed to be a kind of desire and greed. Deep disappointment ensues. She suddenly recalled a sentence that the big sister once said, These brothers, there is not a single good thing. At this moment, she had a deep understanding. The rescue of the Empress failed. Could it be that in the future, Demeter will make all the crops in the world wither, the earth will lose its vitality, and no grass will grow? On the ground, Hephaestus thought to himself. As far as he knew, in the original Greek mythology, Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, was snatched away by Pluto because of her daughter. Zeus didn't care about this matter, and in a rage, all the crops on the earth lost their vitality. This incident threatened the belief in the world on Mount Olympus. Zeus had no choice but to order Hades to let him go. But at that time, Persephone had already eaten the food of the underworld, and according to the laws of God, she could not return to the human world. So they thought of a compromise, so that the queen of the underworld spends half of the time in the underworld and half of the time in the human world every year. However, Persephone has not yet eaten the food of the underworld. Looks like things are still going to change. Hephaestus thought again. This farce is over. The gods also dispersed, but Hestia and Demeter did not leave. It seems that he wants to stay in the underworld and look for another opportunity. I didn't care about it. Hephaestus returned to the room first. Although Zeus was cold-blooded and ruthless, his immediate decision was not unreasonable. At this juncture, taking away Hades' beloved woman is bound to trigger a fierce civil strife. When the abyss gods and demons invade, the consequences will be very serious. However, Hephaestus had just closed the door when there was a sound of footsteps outside. Hecate, who was combing her hair in front of the mirror, didn't look back, and said calmly, Hephaestus, it seems that the goddess of agriculture has something to do with you, Emperor Shang. Although she didn't go out just now, she also used divine magic to gain insight into what happened outside. So I know everything clearly. Hecate didn't finish his sentence. Demeter knocked on the door. Excuse me, is this the room of the destroyer god of craftsmen? Hephaestus was a little speechless. As soon as he walked on his front foot, his back foot followed him. He had a premonition. It must not be a good thing for the goddess of agriculture to seek him out. But he didn't avoid it either. Hephaestus took a deep look at Hecate, opened the door and went out. Fragrant winds hit. Demeter's proud figure appeared in front of her eyes. Hephaestus couldn't help sighing inwardly. When Demeter saw the blonde-haired youth coming out, his eyes lit up, and he asked urgently, You are Hephaestus, the god of fire horse craftsman, right? Tos nodded helplessly. Yes. He was sure some troubled god had brought his news to Demeter. Otherwise, it is impossible for this goddess who has never met before to know his name and find his room so accurately. Great, Hephaestus, I didn't expect you to be so handsome. Demeter gave a compliment with weird eyes. She had heard about the abandoned son of Hera. So be amazed at Hephaestus's stunningly handsome features. Hephaestus has long been accustomed to this look, and asked, I don't know if the goddess of agriculture is looking for me. I want to discuss something with you. Demeter seemed hesitant to speak, but finally made up her mind and said, Hephaestus, I want to marry my daughter Persephone to you, do you accept? Hephaestus was stunned for a moment, very speechless. What happened recently? Wave after wave of people came, all wanting to marry their daughters to him. Don't dislike Persephone, I promise, she is perfect. Hephaestus, no, I swear, you have to trust me. Seeing the change in Hephaestus' face, Demeter thought that Hephaestus was despising his daughter, and hurriedly defended. And her words confused Hephaestus. Empress Dowager, Yes, a perfect body. How is this possible? It has been so long since Hades took Persephone captive to the underworld. Even if he doesn't have a stallion like Zeus and Poseidon, he can't be a loose shahui who can sit still. Demeter cast a barrier around her body, and explained to Hephaestus in a low voice. You have to believe me, Hephaestus. This is what my big sister, Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, told me. It is absolutely true. Back then, Hades and our brothers and sisters overthrew the second-generation god king, and our father Cronus. During a battle, he was accidentally castrated by Cronus. Hephaestus looked strange, and asked, so, Pluto, under him? Empty. Demeter nodded again and again, and said firmly, it's empty. Hephaestus felt a shock in his heart. No wonder Hades is not a stallion like Zeus and Poseidon. No wonder Hades and the Queen of Hades have never had children in Greek mythology. It turned out to be the reason. But even that proves Persephone's chastity. Hephaestus also has no intention of marrying the queen. He knew exactly what this agricultural goddess was thinking. It can be said that Demeter didn't really want to marry his daughter at all, but liked his strength. I want to use him to help Persephone get rid of Hades and leave this dark underworld. This is the use of Chiguo. Hephaestus stared at Demeter, and a word appeared in his mind for 2.6 seconds. The bear is big and brainless. Just had a fight with Hades, and if you can't fight, come to marry your daughter. He couldn't find a more suitable adjective. Even if the Empress Dowager secretly came to seduce him, it will definitely be more effective than going directly to the door and saying, hi, I'm going to use you. Sorry, Great Nongan. Hephaestus refused. I just married Hecate, the goddess of magic 3 days ago. Soon, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, will also marry me. I have no plans to marry another wife for the time being. Hearing this, Demeter suddenly showed disappointment, and said, then, that's fine. She didn't say anything, turned and left. Besides, the superficial alliance between Hades and me hasn't broken up yet, so it's not okay to go and grab his wife. Hephaestus stared at her leaving back, added something in his heart, pushed the door in, and closed the door. Hades' inner temple. Take advantage of the time of Hephaestus' wedding to relax and recuperate. The three kings reunited to discuss the matter of the abyss gods and demons. Now, Poseidon leaned back in his chair, staring at his elder brother with a pair of purple eyes. Hades, we are always waiting for Cronus to lead the army to attack, it is too passive. It is not a good idea to spend it here all the time, is it? Whether it is the holy mountain or the sea, there are a lot of affairs waiting for us to deal with. The underworld is dark, full of lifelessness and coldness. Even the gods are not comfortable staying here, not to mention enjoying Poseidon who is used to it. He had already begun to miss those nephrite jade and warm fragrances in his palace. On the dark throne, Hades replied blankly. Then, Poseidon, what good idea do you have? Our three armies are gathered together, and we are not afraid of Cronus. As long as you have a way to get him to come out and fight us immediately, we can end this war early. You can return to their respective territories as soon as possible, without having to stay in the underworld. Ever since the goddess of agriculture and the goddess of hearth came to the underworld to make trouble, he was always in a bad mood. Hearing some complaints from Poseidon at this time, he replied lukewarmly. Poseidon laughed loudly. Well, it's also very simple. We rushed directly into the abyss of hell and killed Cronus. The world will be peaceful from now on. With all due respect, Neptune, the abyss is Tartarus territory. Without waiting for Pluto to speak, sleeping god Hypnos replied. If we rush in like this, if we offend him, we will suffer disaster. Even if my mother takes action, it may not be able to save everyone. His words are also a worry in the hearts of the gods. To fight in hell is not to fight in the stomach of Tartarus. He was so annoyed that he swallowed them up, it would be too unfair to die. More importantly, Tartarus can absorb the power of the gods in the abyss to make up for its own losses. At this time, Hecate, the vice-lord of the underworld, went on to say seriously. We rushed in recklessly, and it is very likely to help him return to the peak state. Once he turns back to the original god, he will no longer obey the agreement between the goddess of the night and the mother of the gods as he is now. After several days of hard work, her girlish features had undergone a slight change. Become mature and charming, like a plump peach. If you talk about the understanding of the abyss of hell, definitely number one among the gods of the underworld. When the gods of the holy mountain and the sea heard what Hecate said, their vigilance suddenly increased. Some gods who wanted to come according to Poseidon's opinion also retreated. Quote. Poseidon stroked his beard and fell silent. Hades didn't speak, and looked at the gods coldly. At this time, Zeus spoke majestically. Sooner or later, Cronus can't help but come out. It's not advisable to take the initiative to attack. Ares, you led people to strengthen the entrance of the abyss, beware of them, and call the police at any time if there is any abnormality. Among the gods, the burly god of war Ares stood up and said respectfully, obey. Just when the gods were thinking about how to eradicate Cronus. In the abyss of hell, the outside world, Mount Olympus, the ocean, and the underworld have formed a coalition of the gods. Cronus, you can bring them into fight. Whether you win or lose, they can help me recover my strength. At that time, I will return to my original state, goddess of the night, and Gaia will no longer be able to restrict me. And I can also help you regain your authority. In the endless darkness, Tartarus' voice resounded. Cronos, who stood obediently in the dark, was disdainful. What helped him gain power? It's just trying to use him. After being locked in the abyss of hell for so many years, Tartarus ignored him. Even planning to devour the underworld is almost always discussed with Typhon. The only few conversations with him were just because it was necessary to win over. Now being suppressed by the two primordial gods, the mighty son Typhon also died, and began to warm up with him. One day, I will devour you. Cronos thought to himself, but on the surface he still replied respectfully, Dear Lord of Hell, Zeus and the others are all scheming and extremely shrewd, so they will not be fooled. Led them into the abyss to fight. I'm afraid, let you are disappointed. Who would know that there is a primordial god in the abyss who is waiting to be fed, and come in to seek death? Tartarus fell silent. Cronus waited, not daring to leave like this. It's been a long time. The voice of Tartarus came again. They added a guy named God of War to guard the entrance of the abyss, maybe you can think of a way. Go down first, Cronus. He told Cronos the latest information. And the latter, thoughtful, bowed and retreated. God of War. As far as Cronus knew, this was the child of Zeus and Hera. He is a simple-minded, quick-tempered fool. When Thea descended into the abyss last time, I told him that Ares, the god of war, and Helios, the god of the sun, entered Hades together to carry out the order of the god king. If it's this idiot, then there are indeed some ways to think about it. Cronus's scarlet eyes flashed coldly. He returned to the territory where the gods and demons gathered, and gave an order to his subordinates. The entrance to the abyss of hell. Ares, the god of war who followed the orders of the god king, led a group of low-level gods to guard the place. He held a spear, majestic and serious. Look conscientious. But in fact, Ares was full of complaints and couldn't express it. Ever since he lied to his god king father Zeus for fabricating the story of Apolluo's death, last time, he has become less and less popular. Zeus hardly looked him in the eye anymore. This time, he was directly sent over as a guard. Be a guard in such a harsh place, full of danger. You must know that once the army of gods and demons attacks, they will be submerged in the tide of the enemy's ministers in an instant. Although Ares is not afraid, he is already extremely upset inside. Full of resentment, it is difficult to vent. Boom. Suddenly, a lingering flow of evil spirit pierces the void. Pull out bursts of powerful law power. Hit Ares' head directly. The blow was very sudden and quite fierce. Almost as powerful as the 7th or 8th level of the main god realm. Gods and demons have invaded. Ares was startled suddenly, the fighting instinct came into play, and at the same time as the domain was released, he directly raised the spear, summoned the vast divine power, aimed at this magic arrow and drew it. Boom! The sharp and swift spear deflects this magic arrow. And at the same time, above Ares' head, a void crack appeared strangely. Dozens of monsters pointed their ear piercingly at Ares and pouted their buttocks. Puff! Pieces of filth fell from the sky. It almost covered the war domain, and bursts of stench hit. When Ares saw this scene, uncontrollable anger suddenly burned in his heart. In the face of this kind of harmless, highly insulting excrement attack, Ares' eyes turned red, and he screamed in anger, You lowly, lowly fool. How dare you insult the dignity of the god of war, death? His field of war explodes unleashed. The spear is thrown like lightning to the space crack above the head. But the opponent's movement was one step faster than his. The monsters let out ear-piercing ridicules, then scattered, and the cracks healed again. The meteor-like spear hit an empty space. Where to escape? Ares was so enraged and dizzy at this moment that he tore open the seal of the abyss and rushed in regardless of the consequences. Although the anger made him lose his mind. But Ares still knew in his heart that there was Tartarus sitting in the abyss, which was very dangerous. So he decided to evacuate immediately after killing these monsters. Anyway, the three original gods had agreed before that Tartarus could not do anything. As for the other gods, as the god of war, he is not afraid. Master god of war must not do it. Come out, Lord god of war. Seeing this scene, the low-level gods guarding this place were so frightened that they broke out in cold sweat. They hurriedly exclaimed and followed closely, trying to stop Ares. God of war, and he is the son of God King and God Queen. Don't make a mistake. Except for a god who moved a little slower and didn't keep up. The gods guarding this place all chased Ares into the abyss. And the remaining low-level god was stunned, screaming, "Something is wrong," and ran towards the direction of Hades' palace. In the abyss of hell. It was dark and cold. Ares and the gods guarding the entrance came down together, and they all shuddered, feeling that the power of the gods was not working smoothly. However, this cannot extinguish Ares' anger. He spread out the field, and immediately sensed the monsters who were molesting and insulting him not far away, raised his spear and roared. Dare to desecrate the dignity of the god of war. I want you to die without a place to bury you. Toe 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 toe. Wood. Those monsters were still mocking him without any fear. This made Ares even more angry, and War Realm immediately blessed the spear, intending to kill him. And at this moment, rumble, a vast and boundless force of law descends. Suppress Ares' domain directly. The gods can't even move a finger. This terrifying coercion has far exceeded the realm of the main god. I am afraid that only that one can release it. Lord of Hell, Tartarus. No. Ares felt himself being poured from the head to the bottom by a basin of ice water, and looked into the boundless darkness with horror. Many guarding gods also trembled. They all thought that Tartarus did not keep the agreement. Now they are dead. Ares and the gods entered the abyss of hell, but did not come out. This incident soon alarmed the gods of the coalition forces. But Ares, the god of war, is the man of Olympus. The gods of the underworld and the sea watched from the sidelines and did not respond. Only Zeus made waves. What now? Zeus. Ares hasn't come out for so long, he must have been captured by Cronus. The god Empress Hera turned around in a hurry. Although Ares is always giving her trouble. But this is her flesh and blood after all, it is impossible not to worry. Ms. Knight has an agreement with Gaia and Tartarus. The original gods cannot intervene in this war. Zeus, you lead the army to save people quickly. We will definitely defeat Cronus. This will also help this war. Quote. Hera paced back and forth, and said to Zeus, who was sitting there motionless. However, she said so much. Zeus still just shook his head slowly with a blank face. It won't work, Hera. We can't bet on life and death on the promises of these original gods. They're cunning. Far beyond your imagination. Quote. As the king of the gods, he cannot take risks. Not to mention that an Ares went in, even if an Apollo was added, he couldn't move lightly. This is a fierce battle related to the position of the king of gods. Zeus, that's your son. Seeing Zeus' refusal, Hera couldn't help being angry. She suddenly understood now, Deseter's mood is gone. Stop talking, I won't send anyone in to rescue Ares. If someone violates the order and acts rashly, he will be punished by the law of God. Zeus said coldly. Hera fell silent. Looking at his face with complicated eyes for a moment, he sat down helplessly on the side of the god queen. She knew there was no hope with Zeus. I kept thinking of other ways in my mind. And the gods stood silently, not daring to say a word. Ares is an idiot, he can't even do things like guarding the gate. Zeus's eyes were filled with electricity and light, and sullen anger appeared on his face. Also complaining about Ares. This idiot not only harmed himself, but also implicated him in an embarrassing situation where he would not save his son. Just when the gods are silent, Hermes, the messenger of the gods, walked into the palace, followed by two low-level monsters filled with evil spirits. The eyes of all the gods moved to them instantly, including Zeus and Hera, and these two monsters were trembling because of this. What is this for, Hermes? Zeus asked with a frown. A murderous look appeared between his brows. Now that he saw the monster, he couldn't help but feel murderous. Hermes replied respectfully, King of the gods, these two are messengers sent by Cronus to negotiate. They said that if you want to save Ares' life, you have to take out 3 gods in exchange. His voice fell. Many gods were in an uproar. This is simply a lion's mouth. 1 Ares is exchanged for 3,000 gods. When Zeus heard this, a terrifying coercion suddenly erupted from his body. The 2 little goblins collapsed to the ground on the spot, tremblingly said, the great king of the gods. Lord Cronus, he did indeed say so, we are just passing on the message. Please forgive me. Go back and tell him. I won't change even a single god. If he kills Ares, this king will personally cut off his head and avenge Ares. Zeus' anger seemed to materialize, turning this place into a coercive hell. All the gods were frightened. The 2 little goblins even said yes again and again, and fled out of the shit. Wang Dezhao saw them disappear in sight. Hera, who was sitting by the side, changed his complexion, thought for a moment, and said to the god king. Zeus, how about giving Cronus 3,000 lower gods? As long as we return Ares, we can get them back. As soon as this statement came out, Zeus immediately looked at her sharply, and said in the same way, Hera, I didn't expect you to be so confused. Do you know the consequences of doing this? Seeing Zeus like this, Hera replied coldly, I only know that my son Ares is in danger now. Zeus's face was livid, and he roared through the voice transmission, a woman's opinion. A woman's benevolence. Hera, if you really do this, we will lose the support of the gods from now on. Do you know what this means? When the gods no longer support, the king of the gods will no longer be the king of the gods. Hera fell silent, her chest rose and fell violently, and she also looked very angry. After a while, she snorted coldly and got up to leave the palace. Iris, the goddess of the rainbow, followed closely. Once you leave the temple, Hera immediately ordered Iris to go to Hypnos, the god of sleep. Now that Zeus won't help save Ares, she has to find another way. For example, ask the original god for help. Not long. Iris returns with sleepy god. Apparently, the sleeping god also knew about Ares' failure to return after entering the abyss, so Hera was not surprised to find him. After seeing the gods, Hypnos bowed slightly to the beautiful blonde woman in front of him. Hera waved her hand and said, There's no need to be too polite, Hypnos, I want to ask you something. Hypnos shrugged, and said irrefutably, If it's to rescue Ares, the god of war, I don't think I can help you, queen of the gods. No, you can. Let me enter the kingdom of dreams, Hypnos, I want to see the goddess of the night, I must talk to her. Hera regained her usual calm and majesty. Say this sentence in a tone that leaves no doubt. Hypnos sighed, and said, Okay, of course you can enter the dream kingdom. But I can only help here. Whether my mother is willing to come out to see you is another matter. Hera nodded, indicating that she understood. Please lie down on the bed and relax, and I will guide you into the kingdom of dreams. Hypnos waved his arm, and a magic wand appeared in his hand. Okay. Hera came to the bed according to his words, lay down flat, closed his eyes, and waited for the god of sleep to cast a spell. After settling down, Hypnos swung his magic wand at her. A deep and irresistible deep drowsiness came surging. The next moment, Hera's consciousness fell into the boundless darkness. The breeze was blowing. Hera opened her eyes again. She found herself in a vast wilderness. The black sky is dotted with thousands of stars, full of sacred and peaceful atmosphere. Hera immediately knew that she had come to the kingdom of dreams. She was slightly overjoyed, and shouted to the sky. Great lady of the night, wind. But there is no response. Hera waited for a moment, frowned slightly, and said again. Ms. Night, my son Ares, the god of war, was captured by the despicable Kronos in the abyss of hell. He also sent people to ask us to exchange 3,000 gods for the life of Ares. Behind this, must be supported by Tartarus. Ms. Evernight, please help me save Ares from hell. It's over. After a long time, only then did a quiet and peaceful voice sound from the sky. I have an appointment with Gaia, so I can't take action against Tarta BHFJ loss. Otherwise, Gaia will also deal with Hades and my children. Hera, I can't agree to your request. This is the reply from the goddess of the night. She didn't show up, but the whole world is like her incarnation. Her voice kept echoing, but, asking for 3,000 gods is obviously to help Tartarus recover his strength. Goddess of the night, they have already violated the agreement first. Cried Hera again. She had already figured out something just now. The kidnapping of Ares was apparently done by Cronus and the Eye of Hell. A long time passed. It seemed to be considered for a moment. The goddess of the night said, "Well, Hera, I will give you an artifact, and you go and give it to Cronus." The voice did not fall. A stream of black light descended from the sky. A layer of black light shrouded him, and the incomparably powerful power of law lingered around his body. This is the pupil of darkness, the primordial artifact that I cultivated, enough to devour Tartarus, who is half a step into the primordial state. With Kronos' ambition, once he gets this artifact, he will definitely use it to deal with Tartarus. At that time, if he succeeds in devouring the Lord and becomes the new Lord of the Abyss, I will also be able to attack him. Gaia, I won't say much. If it fails, this artifact will be obtained by Tartarus, and I will use this as an excuse to deal with him. This calculation is accurate to Cronus. Moreover, these two tigers are fighting each other and killing each other. No matter who wins or loses, Evernight Goddess has an excuse to make a move. After hearing this, Hera showed joy, held up the dark pupil, and said, "Miss Evernight has a wonderful plan. I will go and give this artifact to Kronos." The Evernight Goddess didn't speak any more. The bright stars twinkle. Hera felt dizzy, and a strong sense of dizziness came to her head, and she couldn't stand at all. She let out a groan and sat up abruptly on the bed. "God Queen, what's the matter?" Iris, who was guarding the side, immediately walked to the bedside and asked worriedly. "It's nothing, it's just being rejected by the Kingdom of Dreams." Hypnos, who was waiting with folded arms, replied. "It would be uncomfortable to be excluded from the Kingdom of God. Unless you have a dream priesthood, you can enter and exit independently." "I'm fine, Iris." Hera calmed down for a while, and suddenly remembered the original artifact given to her by the Evernight Goddess. "Open your palms and take a look." Sure enough, there was an unknown object emitting black light. Powerful coercion constantly fluctuates and spreads from it. The rainbow goddess Iris and the god of sleep felt the horror, and their complexions changed at the same time. But Hera, a happy smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. After getting help from the Evernight Goddess, Hera didn't inform anyone, but went to the abyss of hell alone. The low-level gods guarding there couldn't stop it at all. Eyes blurred, a crack was slowly healing in the seal in front of him. Wait for them to react. Hera has entered the depths of the abyss. Still boundless darkness. And bone-chilling cold. As soon as Hera came in, she immediately felt that the divine power in her body was suppressed a lot. But she didn't care about that. Following the induction of the blood in the dark, Hera turned into a streamer and flew away like lightning. And at the same time, the second-generation god King Cronus also sensed Hera. A cold light flashed across the scarlet eyelids. Unexpectedly, "I have the guts to come in. Are you negotiating, or are you here to save people?" Kronos smiled grimly, and flew away as a streamer. After a while, I saw two faint lights colliding together in the darkness. "Hera, unexpectedly, Zeus would send you in. Do you want to single-handedly rescue your child?" Slowly falling from midair, Kronos sneered. Opposite him, Hera also slowly fell down, suppressing a ray of panic in her heart, pretending to be angry and shouting, "Zeus! I was not sent by him. He is a coward. Don't mention him again, father. I am come to negotiate with you." "Father." I haven't heard these two words for a long time. Kronos glanced at Hera, and found that the other party did not intend to do anything. He laughed, and put away the sickle in his hand. "What do you want to negotiate with me?" "Hera, don't play tricks. You and Zeus are both my children, and I know your little thoughts clearly." Hera's expression remained unchanged, and she cried. "He doesn't intend to rescue Ares at all. Your messenger should have told you very clearly." "Cronus, I am only here on behalf of myself, and you can't refuse my negotiation, because you can't refuse such a bargaining chip." She flicked her wrist. A terrifying power of law that belongs to the original state diffuses out. Original artifact. When Kronos saw this, his pupils shrank suddenly. He could clearly feel the power of this artifact. Looking around vigilantly, he was covered by Hera's domain and covered another layer of domain. I am afraid that Tartarus will notice something strange. Yes, this is the original artifact. This is my bargaining chip. Hera said. Cronus, for the sake of the overall situation, they are unwilling to save Ares, but Ares is my child, no matter what, I can't just sit idly by. I can't do anything with 3,000 gods, but I can. How about exchanging Ares for this original artifact? She said this as if complaining. The purpose is to make Cronus believe in himself. But Kronos stared at the dark pupil, ignoring Hera at all, as if he didn't listen to the words at all. Using the original artifact for an insignificant little master god, hee. Kronos sneered in his heart. If you think about it with your toes, you all know that there must be a conspiracy. But he didn't intend to refuse. After all, this artifact is too tempting. With this original artifact, he can regain his strength and get rid of Tartarus' control. Maybe he can be promoted to the original realm in one fell swoop. No matter how big the pit is inside, he has to jump into it. Dangers and opportunities coexist. Hera, I never thought you would love your child so much. Kronos spoke, and approached Hera step by step. You were right, this chip is something I cannot refuse. Give it to me, and I will let Ares go. Hera was very nervous. It took a lot of courage for her to enter hell alone. In case of being swallowed by Cronus again, she may not survive. Cronus, you have to swear before I can hand over the artifact to you. Hera clenched the pupil of darkness, turned her back behind her, and said after 2 steps. Kronos showed an impatient look. However, in order not to cause further complications and attract the attention of Tartarus, he still said, I swear, I will let Ares go. Remember your oath. Hera nodded and handed over the pupil of darkness. The latter took the original artifact with fiery eyes, feeling the enormous power in it. At the same time, it is constantly checking whether there are any restrictions or hidden means in it. I checked it over and over 10 times. Kronos didn't find anything wrong, and stared suspiciously at Hera standing in front of him. What's the matter? Cronus, can you release Ares now? Hera asked nervously. Hearing this, Kronos sneered, not yet. Ares was captured by Tartarus, how can I let him go rashly? This is obviously cheating, although I know that Cronus will play tricks. Moreover, this is also part of the calculation. But at this moment, Hera still couldn't help being angry, and scolded through gnashing of teeth, you are shameless. Hera, it seems that you don't know your dear father well enough. The scythe in Kronos' hand reappeared. Strands of scarlet silk thread flew over from the sickle like lightning, entangled Hera. The latter withdrew and retreated, trying to use the power of law to resist. However, that is still not able to escape. Go and accompany your son. When I achieve the original state, maybe I will let you go. Cronus laughed grimly and swung his scythe. He threw Hera out like a meteor, and quickly disappeared into the night. Hera's frightened screams also disappeared. Full of darkness, this is probably something of the Evernight goddess. But, why is there no dark hand inside? Layers of barriers are laid around the body. Cronus began to study the dark pupil. He couldn't believe that there was no hidden means in this original artifact. However, no matter how you check, there is nothing unusual. This made him very puzzled. Confused for a moment, Cronus' eyes glowed red. He decided to risk himself. This is his best chance to get rid of Tartarus. The best chance to become the original god. Therefore, Cronus also took out the corresponding Soul 5. Infusion of divine power. The pupil of darkness is suspended in front of him. It quickly turned into a stream of light and penetrated into Cronus's brow. The latter felt a piercing pain between his brows. He hugged his hair immediately and let out a low growl like a wounded beast. The pain came and went quickly. After screaming in pain for a moment, Cronus felt the power in his body, rising steadily. A new way of law is presented in front of you. It is completely different from his previous way of the God King. But it still allows him to become the original god. This artifact has merged with me. Kronos raised his head, excitement and frenzy flashed across his scarlet eyes. Between his eyebrows, a black vertical line appeared. With a thought, the vertical stripes mutated and opened directly, revealing black and terrifying pupils. A destructive force is constantly overflowing from it. Swallow, swallow. Soon, Kronos accepts the dark pupil's intentions. And being affected, he also felt an unstoppable sense of hunger in his heart, and he began to yearn for something that could make up for this hunger. Not food, but power. Strong force. The scarlet light in Kronos' eyes grew bigger and bigger. His spirit spread out infinitely, and he immediately sensed the depths of the distant hell. The existence of a behemoth. Normally, this huge monster would only scare him. But now, blessed with incomparably majestic and vast power, Kronos seemed to have discovered a delicacy, the most delicious food. With the blessing of artifacts, I should be able to rival Tartarus now. An idea suddenly emerged. Kronos' ambition is rapidly expanding. It seems to be to give Kronos confidence. The pupil of darkness exudes a power almost like that of a primordial god. Even more terrifying than Tartarus. Kronos touched the vertical pupil between his eyebrows, grinned, and disappeared in place. He is one with the darkness. Dive far away where Tartarus sleeps. Devour Tartarus. Become the master of the abyss of the new generation. Thus, even without this original artifact, he can still dominate one side. That's what Kronos thought. He can't ensure that the original artifact has no hands and feet, but he can ensure that he has the authority of the abyss. I don't know how long time passed. In the deep and dense darkness, suddenly there was a terrifying roar from Tartarus. There is a hint of panic in the anger. Immediately, the entire abyss of hell, including the entire Netherland, shook violently. All the gods and demons imprisoned in hell, as well as the gods gathered in the underworld, all looked in the direction of the sound with puzzled faces. What happened to be? This is the power of Nyx. Kronos, how dare you betray me? In the dark abyss, Tartarus let out a painful roar. Unceasingly exploding tsunami-like monstrous divine power, slamming towards the surrounding dark barriers. However, all his attacks were swallowed by this barrier. Even the power of the vast law that can shatter everything disappeared without a trace. Although the aftermath of Tartarus' resistance shook the entire abyss of hell and the underworld, but still can't break through this dark cage. And Kronos, holding a sickle, stood outside the dark barrier. His aura was rising steadily, and the expression of extreme enjoyment was displayed on his face. Devour, Tartarus, your power is so pure. This is the original power. Very good, very good. I am getting stronger and stronger. The power he devoured continuously feeds back the pupil of darkness. And the pupil of darkness continues to strengthen the barrier of darkness. After a short cycle like this, Tartarus's aura has already become sluggish. 733. He was never back to his peak. Now with this powerful primitive artifact, it is almost like fighting a primitive god. How to match it? There was a flash of light. I saw in the huge dark enchantment. Tartarus turned into a cold and proud man in black, floating in the air, looked at Kronos angrily, and shouted. Kronos, don't think that with Nyx helping you, you can devour me. I'll give you one last chance to think about it. Stop now, otherwise, don't blame me and you. The darkness around him creases. It seems like it's about to be shattered at any moment. A terrifying force is brewing. Kronos outside the cage was throbbing in his heart. Scarlet eyelids also gazed at Tartarus. He had a premonition that this old monster's counterattack on the verge of death might destroy him too, and it was not a lie. Kronos, you figure it out. That cousin of Nyx is just using you. Let us kill each other. Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon in the underworld are your enemies. I promise, you now stop, I can let go of the past. We can still cooperate. Don't you want to regain control of the world? I will help you regain everything that was lost, and regain the throne of God King, isn't that good? Tartarus said hastily. He is getting weaker and weaker. This original artifact is too powerful. Every time he is about to break through, the pupil of darkness will burst out a bright light full of sacred aura, suppressing him. If he couldn't escape again, he was afraid that he would really die here. Kronos still didn't respond, just as Talos was considering his conditions. Kronos suddenly let out a hoarse and shrill laugh. Ha ha ha, Tartarus, is this your last words? Unexpectedly, you are also an idiot. If I don't devour you, how can I deal with Nyx? You can die for me in peace. I will completely replace you, be a new generation. Rumble. The powerful forces belonging to the original realm suddenly gathered. The dark enchantment shrinks rapidly. The living space of Tartarus is extremely compressed. In an instant, his already pale complexion became even paler. Lord of Hell, Kronos roared frantically for the last time. The endless power of law forcibly deprived Tartarus of the authority of the abyss. Ah 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 ah. Tartarus twisted his face and let out a shrill scream. At the last minute, he manipulated the final authority, gathered all the power of the abyss to bless himself. Launched a self-destruct. I saw thousands of cracks in his body. His eyes revealed a destructive dark aurora. This is a former primordial god, the final counterattack. But the pupil of darkness between Kronos' brows, in an instant, erupted with more outrageous power of law and power of origin, infinitely close to chaos. Swallowing all light, cutting darkness, all laws, loss devour. In an instant, it became a space without color and sound. Everything returns to dead silence. It's like the initial state where nothing was born. This moment, Earth Temple. While sleeping, a graceful woman suddenly opened her eyes. Tartaros. She panicked and whispered a name, and her eyes immediately burst into divine light, reaching the deep and boundless abyss of hell. Immediately afterwards, she saw the scene where Tartarus was swallowed by Kronos. Kronos, you, seeing my lover die. Gaia raised her eyebrows, screamed angrily, and a breathtaking evil spirit erupted from her body. She swayed slightly, as if she was about to get up. However, in the end, Gaia only clenched her fists and did not enter the underworld. Kronos, I didn't expect you to turn around one day. By yourself, it is impossible to kill Tartarus. It seems that Nyx is helping you. A look of fear flashed in Gaia's eyes. If Kronos and Nyx colluded, then if she rushes in rashly now, she will definitely encounter an ambush. Gaia's thoughts flashed, and her face soon calmed down as before, half lying down in a charming posture. Kronos, since you are endless, let me see where your limit is. Gaia's anger was not entirely due to the death of Tartarus, but mostly because of being offended by dignity. After all, although this concubine has some old feelings with her, she also has her own plans, and she is not in the same heart or in the same boat as her. Now that he is dead, there is no need to take the risk of leaving the people. The battle between Tartarus and Kronos actually passed quickly. The gods of the underworld, as well as the gods and demons in the abyss of hell, only felt waves of violent shocks. After a while, everything returned to calm. However, the abyss of hell seems to have undergone a completely different change. In this short moment, no one knows what happened in the abyss. Except for the goddess of the night in the kingdom of dreams, and Gaia in the temple of the earth. And the bound god Queen Hera obtained the authority of the abyss. Kronos' body recondensed. He raised his head, closed his eyes, and spread his arms, showing a look of intoxication. He has now merged with the abyss. This is his unique kingdom of God. A new generation of Hell Masters is born. Moreover, the realm of Kronos has been promoted to the half-step original realm. This is the power that can be exerted without relying on the original artifact of the pupil of darkness. This is the original realm. Kronos opened his eyes, his eyelids were scarlet. When he was the second-generation God King, he also touched this realm. It's a pity that before he was promoted further, he was overthrown by his good boys and sent into the abyss of hell. Gaia, I will settle this account with you sooner or later. Kronos whispered in his heart. He knew very well that the battle of the scythe was Gaia's work. The person who really overthrew him was Gaia. Without her support, it would be impossible for Zeus to grow up, nor would it be possible for the series of events that followed. But now is not the time to take revenge and take it all back. Kronos intends to become the original god, and then walk out of this abyss cage and rule the world. With strong strength, all conspiracies will be self-defeating. Kronos touched the pupil of darkness between his brows. After this fierce battle, this original artifact seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep after consuming too much power. In the short term, there is no way to use it again. It takes a while to restart. Kronos grinned. Nyx, your move to drive away tigers and wolves is wonderful. Unfortunately, you must have never imagined that I will be the winner in the end. I will accept your original artifact. Kingdom of Dreams. The goddess of the night, like Gaia, is also staring into the abyss of hell. Witnessed that Kronos achieved half-step originality. Although it is also half-step primordial, Kronos is stronger than Tartarus. In order to ensure that Kronos was fooled, Evernight Goddess did not put any hands or feet on the pupil of darkness. Because of this, Kronos got a lot of money from it. In addition, his original path of the God King has not been completely cut off, and he has merged with the authority of the Abyss to create a more powerful Abyss Lord. Kronos deserves to be the second-generation God King who controls the world. He really swallowed Tartarus. Moreover, there is no intention of invading the underworld at all. It seems that they want to consolidate the realm and attack the original. The Evernight Goddess murmured to herself and smiled disdainfully. Tartarus was originally in the original state, so he only needed to recover slowly to reach the peak again. However, Kronos has never stepped into this realm, and it is extremely difficult to break through, especially without the support of the Pupil of Darkness. The Pupil of Darkness represents another smooth path to the original. Kronos cannot follow, but can learn from it. Goddess of the Evernight naturally wouldn't hand over this great benefit to him. Now, it's time to harvest harvests. Today, all the guys who threaten the underworld will be dealt with. Boom! Suddenly, a surge of divine power emanated from the Kingdom of Dreams, traveling through the endless void and reaching the distant Earth Temple. Gaia, you must be aware of the riot that happened just now. Kronos swallowed Tartarus, and it will not take long for him to hit the original realm. The enmity between you and him is not shallow. Why not go into the abyss with me, behead him, and avoid future troubles for you and me? The quiet and pleasant voice of the goddess of the night sounded. In the temple of the earth, there was a sneer in Gaia's eyes, as if mocking Kronos for being self-confident, and replied lightly at this moment. Nix, you can solve Kronos by yourself, why come to me again? The abyss of hell, I'm not interested in going there again. Whether you want to cut off future troubles or raise tigers for trouble, feel free. The contract is broken. She had nothing nice to say about Evernight either. And to this answer, the Evernight Goddess couldn't help being a little surprised. Originally, she thought that Gaia would definitely accept the invitation and go with her to kill Kronos. After all, Gaia and Kronos have had a long-standing grudge, and once the latter grows up, he is bound to launch fierce revenge. If that's the case, don't bother me much. Gaia refused, and Evernight Goddess didn't say much, and cut off contact directly. Actually, there are many hairs, and she doesn't care about the bad ones. Moreover, to kill Kronos, she can also do it alone. Even if the other party achieves the original state, she will not be her opponent. The reason why she refused was because she wanted to see how far Kronos could develop, whether it would be stronger than that trash of Tartarus, and puppets and Kronos dogs. Dog. In the abyss of hell. The dreamland came quietly. The endless, bright and dazzling light of the stars dispelled the bitter cold and darkness here. In an instant, thousands of gods and demons were awakened. And the trapped Hera and Ares' mother and son. The Evernight Goddess has come. Hera murmured inwardly. It seems that this plan is going well. And at the same time, Kronos, the second-generation Hell Master who is consolidating his realm, has also noticed the coming of the Dream Kingdom. Opening her scarlet eyes, she shouted fearfully in one direction, Goddess of the Night, what's your business in hell? His voice resounded through the abyss, full of vast and unrivaled laws of hell. Ask the question knowingly, Kronos, return the artifact quickly. Harsh words rolled out in shock. In the hazy starlight, the Goddess of the Night appeared, with a slim body and proud curves. A ray of light reflected between Kronos' brows, and he continued, What artifact, Evernight Goddess? I don't understand what you are talking about. A primitive artifact. He will not give up so easily. The abyss of hell is his kingdom of God. Can weaken the enemy and strengthen himself, so he is not afraid of the Evernight Goddess. If the opponent wants to grab the artifact, he doesn't mind a fight. Humph. Nyx didn't talk nonsense, snorted coldly, and immediately pushed his palm and blasted out a vast force of the same origin as the Pupil of Darkness, which went straight to Kronos in the depths of hell. The Kingdom of Dreams behind her is just a projection. So the power of blessing is not enough. After going through the layers of weakness of the law of the abyss, the power of this blow has been greatly reduced. Rumble. Kronos waved his sickle and summoned the power of the abyss to meet him. The two collided, and a huge earthquake erupted immediately. The underworld and the earth trembled again. Even if there is an abyss to bless itself and weaken the enemy. Cronus shook the palm hard, but it was still very uncomfortable. #EXX. Cronus, you are going to die. Nyx gave another cold shout, and merged into one body in the darkness, wrapped in the projection of the kingdom of God, and went straight to Cronus. The latter's face was pale, and cold sweat broke out from behind. As long as it can stop this time, he will be able to completely stabilize the foundation. So this is a crucial battle. Come on. The fear in Kronos' eyes turned into a raging fighting spirit. The two powerful forces of the abyss and the night collided violently. From time to time, there are scythes that split the void and the law. But even an extremely powerful lunatic like Kronos is not a match for the Evernight goddess. Bombarded by waves of fierce law force, spit blood. If it weren't for him to control the authority of the abyss, those who are already dead at this moment cannot die anymore. Goddess of the night, the abyss is me, and I am the abyss. No matter how powerful you are, it is impossible to erase the abyss of hell. Kronos wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his body suddenly disintegrated, merging with the entire abyss. The whole abyss was repeating his last words. Nyx stopped attacking, frowning. Fighting in the opponent's kingdom of God is troublesome. Kronos' strength was a bit beyond her expectations. It is indeed difficult to kill the other party. Moreover, Nyx didn't want to kill Kronos just like that. This time, he and Gaia formed another bridge. Letting Kronos, who covets the position of God King, survive can also give Gaia a headache. Kronos, I'll give you a chance. The Evernight goddess thought about it, and said, give me back the artifact, let Hera and Ares go, and I will leave immediately and I won't trouble you anymore. Talk about conditions. Kronos was a little surprised by this, but if he could eliminate this fierce battle, he would still be very willing. After the battle just now, he realized that he was not the match of Evernight goddess. So he said, yes, but I also have a case. What conditions? I can give you artifacts and people, but goddess of the night, in the future, you must not interfere with me regaining the throne of God King. Kronos said. Zeus is Gaia. Competing for the position of God King is a problem for Gaia. Of course Nyx would not stop him, so he said, as long as you don't deal with the underworld, I don't care about the rest. Get this sentence. Kronos was overjoyed and said, in this case, it doesn't matter if the artifacts are returned to their original owners. Anyway, the pupil of darkness consumes too much power. It won't be available anytime soon. Kronos isn't afraid to hand it over either. After a while, he might be able to reach the original state. With great strength, naturally there is no need to be afraid of this artifact. He immediately worked to expel the artifact from his body. A faint light emerged from the darkness and flew in front of the Evernight goddess. It is the pupil of darkness. The latter took it with his hand, checked it, found no problem, nodded and said, deal, Kronos, let Hera and her son be released together. If you don't invade the underworld, I won't come to deal with it, you. Kronos laughed. Goddess of the night, the artifact has been returned to you, the two of them, I will let you go after you leave. Although I, Kronos, is not a good person, I will not renege on my word and lose weight. The goddess of the night closed her eyes of darkness, and said silently, forgive me that you don't dare to cheat, otherwise I will destroy you. The domineering voice has not yet fallen. Her figure flashed, and disappeared together with the projection of the kingdom of dreams. Only an outrageous breath remained. She walked for a long time. Kronos's physical body was reappeared, and he was relieved from the bottom of his heart. This catastrophe is over. From now on, he will also have a foothold in the world, compete for the position of God King, and have a strong capital to avenge the gods. Hera, Ares, Kronos' scythe swings. The void twists and turns. Hera mother and son who were trapped in a distant place were immediately moved by him. Both mother and son had just heard Evernight and Kronos talking. Ares' pale face regained some color. Hera was also much calmer than before. Hera, don't say I'm shameless. Now that I've killed Tartarus, it's useless to keep the two of you. I will let you leave the abyss of hell safely. Kronos glanced at the two and said. Hera nodded. Then, Tuxi. In fact, she was thinking in her heart, if it wasn't for the Evernight goddess, this guy would never let the two of them go, and would definitely take this opportunity to blackmail Zeus for more. With a wave of the sickle, a hideous gap appeared in the void, and Hera was immediately teleported away after the gods, and disappeared. However, Ares, the god of war, remained in place. Seeing this situation, Ares immediately tensed up. What do you want to do with him? Could it be that you regretted it? Don't be afraid, my good grandson. Kronos was not in a hurry to send him out, but approached him with a smile on his face. I will send your mother out first. Because she is here, I have some things to say. I want to talk to you, god of war, Ares. You, what are you going to talk about? Ares exerted himself to be calm. Of course it's a deal. I don't think you'll say no, Ares. Cronus said in a seductive tone. As long as you can help me become the original god, I will help you become the king of the gods. How about we complement each other and benefit each other? The words are amazing. Ares' eyes trembled slightly, seemed to be in a daze for a moment, and then refused. Cronus, you can't fool me, you have been plotting to become the king of the gods, how could you give me away? Let me go back immediately, or my mother I will find the Evernight goddess again. Hee, little guy, you are quite wary. Is Cronus still smiling all over his face, persuasively? However, you are wrong. What I have been plotting is revenge, not the throne of the god king. What's more, I am already half primitive now, and I will soon become the real original god. To be the king of gods, what's the use? Of those primordial gods, have you seen anyone who was tempted by the position of god king? Ares, you are a smart person, you should know how to choose. You help me, I will help you, the era of Zeus, it is time to end. These words, straight to the heart of Ares. He couldn't help but fell into deep thought. No matter how you think about it, Cronus' words are very reasonable and convincing. A flame of desire for power gradually burned surgingly in Ares' heart. How do you want me to help you? Ares asked tentatively. Cronus replied. It's very simple, do your best to catch the gods into the abyss for me to practice. When I break through the original day, you will ascend to the throne of God King. Although there are many gods and demons in the abyss. But Cronus couldn't move lightly either. These are the elite soldiers and generals under his command, and they will be used in future battles in all directions. It's that simple. When Ares heard this, he asked again with burning eyes. And Cronus evoked a meaningful smile. It's that simple. After a moment of silence, Ares made up his mind, looked a little happy, nodded and agreed. Yes, I promise you, Cronus. I will find a way to help you break through, and when the time comes, you will also help me to turn Zeus. How can he, who is already arrogant and ambitious, stand up to Cronus' teasing? A few words made him unable to control himself, and he directly turned to his enemy. Cronus' conversation with Ares didn't last long. The entrance to the abyss. It didn't take a while for Hera to come out. Ares also returned to this land of the underworld. Ares, why did you take so long? What did Cronus do to you? Hera, who was anxious, saw her son coming out, and immediately asked nervously. She knew her father's methods, and it was absolutely impossible to let their mother and son leave so easily. It's nothing, mother, I'm fine. Ares shook his head and patted his solid chest. Hera glanced suspiciously several times, and found that there was indeed no problem, so she was relieved and took Ares back to Hades' palace. The mother and son soon reunited with the gods of Mount Olympus. They were worried at first, but now they breathed a sigh of relief. If it weren't for the goddess of the night, Mount Olympus would have suffered a huge loss this time, losing two main gods. Hera, what happened inside? Why are there successive melees? Also, how did Tartarus and Cronus let you out? Zeus got up and asked the two of them. He is eager to know the situation in the abyss. He had a hunch that a drastic change had taken place in that city, with open. When Hera heard this, she immediately told Zeus exactly what happened. @G@*@%. From her seeking help from the goddess of the night, to Cronus devouring Tartarus. After learning all this, Zeus' face darkened, Sway's eyes flickered with lightning, and there was a hint of fear. Cronus has achieved half-step primordial, and can hit the primordial realm at any time, isn't his good life coming to an end? Goddess of the night doesn't care about such a huge threat, but he must take it extremely seriously. He must find a way to eradicate it immediately. Otherwise, his position as the God King will be lost. What's wrong, Zeus? Seeing that her husband's expression was not right, Hera asked with concern. It's nothing, you all retire, I have important history. Zeus was silent for a moment, and waved away the gods. The god king ordered, and the gods had to retreat one after another. Even Hera did not survive. When the temple was empty, Zeus immediately began to summon the mother of all gods, Gaia, the goddess of the earth. Take out the life crystal. Zeus poured divine power into it and immediately began to summon Gaia. Kronos, who is half-step original, can't even kill the goddess of the night, so he will definitely not be an opponent. So this grandma must be called in. Solve this big threat. The life god crystal shone brightly. After a long time, there was no response. Zeus frowned tightly, and continued to devote his divine power, but still failed to get in touch with Gaia. What happened? It is impossible for Gaia not to receive. A thin layer of sweat formed on Zeus' forehead. This has never happened before. Every time he called, Gaia would show up immediately, without a single delay or surprise. This time, the divine crystal of life suddenly failed. And it's this pass. Zeus has thought of a possibility. Zeus cursed. He didn't continue to urge the god crystal, but clenched his big hand tightly, almost crushing the god crystal. He sat back in his seat, his chest heaved violently, and his face was very ugly. It's been a long time. Zeus tried again, but Gaia still didn't respond, apparently ignoring him. This also made Zeus understand that Gaia really didn't want to help him. Zeus sank to the bottom of his heart. Hades, Poseidon is enough to make him very jealous. Now there is another Cronus who hates him deeply, and he is still half a step into the original state. If Gaia does not help him, how will he get through the difficulties? It's this time. Gaia, what are you thinking? There was a click. The blue veins on Zeus's forehead were looming, and he directly crushed the handle of the seat into powder. So angry for a moment, Zeus began to calm down and think about countermeasures. If Gaia doesn't help him, he has to find another way. Hephaestus. According to Prometheus' prophecy, he can also achieve the original state. According to this momentum, he will definitely be one step ahead of me. It seems that we have to find a way from him. Zeus quickly thought of his Vulcan son-in-law. If Hephaestus could achieve the original, he would not have to be afraid of Cronus at all. After all, the relationship between him and this son-in-law has eased, and the previous grievances have been resolved. If there is a war, Hephaestus will not sit idly by. Apollo, come and see me quickly. Zeus thought of this, and immediately sent a voice transmission to one of his sons, Apollo, the god of light. Not long, Apollo, wearing a crown of branches, came to the temple and saluted Zeus respectfully. Since the death of the sun god Helios, Zeus handed over the authority of the sun god to Apollo. The strength of Apollo who got this priesthood has greatly increased, and his momentum has become deeper. At this moment, Apollo tentatively asked, I don't know what your father ordered me to come here. Seeing Zeus's complexion was not good, he thought it might not be a good thing. Nothing else, you are in charge of the priesthood of prophecy, I want you to say something for me. Zeus said straight to the point. Let's see how Hephaestus, the god of fire, can be promoted to the realm of the original god as soon as possible. Apollo can also prophesy, but in this respect, he is not as powerful as the prophet Prometheus. Hearing what Zeus said, Apollo was taken aback. How to promote Vulcan to the realm of the original god as soon as possible? Prophecy of this. What's the matter, Apollo? Zeus asked. It's nothing, father, I'll start prophesying now. Apollo, who was greatly surprised, calmed down and began to prophesy Hephaestus according to Zeus's instructions. Mobilize priesthood. Immediately, an obscure power of law lingered around him. After a while, Apollo's expression became more and more puzzled, as if he was trapped in a problem and couldn't get out. Zeus watched anxiously. After a few breaths, Apollo opened his eyes. His face was a little embarrassed. Father, this. See what? Say it. Yes, I didn't see anything. Apollo continued. I tried my best, but I got an answer vaguely. The breakthrough of Hephaestus seems to be related to the goddess. Is it related to the goddess? What goddess? It's not a goddess, it's related to a goddess. Quote. Zeus looked puzzled. This answer is too vague. After thinking about it for a moment, I didn't have any clues. BHFF. Did Hephaestus need many goddesses? If so, it would be all right to give him a few goddesses. Zeus thought to himself, for the throne of God King, he will not be soft-hearted no matter how many goddesses he sends. Anyway, There are many goddesses on Mount Olympus. Hephaestus married Hecate, and Athena is also his fiancée. He must find someone who is not less beautiful than them. A vigorous and dashing figure holding a bow appeared in Zeus' mind. Goddess of the hunt, Artemis. Apollo, step back, and call your sister to see me by the way. Zeus made up his mind and ordered again. Apollo bowed respectfully and stepped back. I muttered in my heart, is it because I want to marry my sister to Hephaestus? When he turned around and didn't take a few steps, Zeus stopped him again. Apollo, don't go away, and make another prophecy for me. This time, how can I break through the original state? Apollo had no choice but to turn around and replied after hearing the words, I obey, Father. This time the prophecy is no different than the prophecy of Hephaestus. The only difference is that the first time got a vague answer. And this time got nothing. After Zeus knew the result, his complexion changed and he turned Apollo away. Soon after, his order was successfully transmitted to Artemis, the goddess of hunting, via Apollo. The latter floated down into the palace like a long wind. Father. The dashing Artemis saluted Zeus and said with some doubts, Apollo said you summoned me. Artemis, you are here. When Zeus saw this daughter, he showed a rare smile on his face, stood up and said, yes, I have something important to discuss with you for my father. Now that I have internal and external troubles, and the enemy is facing me, I am really tired. Artemis felt that there was something wrong with Zeus today, but he didn't think too much about it, and said, if there is anything to do with the father, just tell him. If the daughter can help, she will definitely share the father's worries. This made Zeus very satisfied. He nodded and said, it's not a big deal, but I want you to get closer to Hephaestus. He is the pillar of the holy mountain, you are my most beloved daughter, and you are also very suitable, but don't let Athena and the others know, you should know what I mean, Artemis. After a few seconds of silence, Artemis' eyes burst into anger. At this moment, she remembered some hints that Apollo told her just now. Goddess, breakthrough, Hephaestus. With these words, the meaning is already obvious. Father, do you want me to be Hephaestus' lover? Artemis suppressed her anger and asked straightforwardly. Hearing her daughter say it so bluntly, Zeus also felt a little embarrassed, but he still said, don't be so angry. Artemis, I know, you have always been arrogant, but Hephaestus is no less than me in terms of strength. In terms of appearance, you can beat your younger brother, what are you dissatisfied with? These words let Artemis be even more disappointed with this father. Father, I never thought you would use your daughter like this. Isn't it enough to send Athena away? Now you want me to be Vulcan's lover? Don't even think about such a thing. Artemis raised her eyebrows sharply, and coldly refused. If it is said to marry in the past, she may still think about it for the rest of her life. However, Zeus actually asked her to be the lover of Hephaestus. How could she, who is proud and arrogant, bear it? Is she that mean? It's not about Hephaestus being good or bad, it's about her own dignity. Although she has a good relationship with Athena, she has been comparing who is better with Athena. Athena can be a fiancée openly, why can't she? Moreover, she has never considered getting married at all. Artemis resolved to remain chaste forever. Zeus did not expect such a big reaction from Artemis. Although he was refuted so mercilessly, he couldn't get angry at all. He has always been more tolerant of Artemis and Apollo. At this moment, I raised my finger and pointed, but it didn't happen in the end. He just sighed, and said helplessly, forget it, if you don't want to, you can just say it directly, why lose your temper like this? Go on. Artemis pursed her lips slightly, turned around and left. Nothing. Zeus summoned Aphrodite, the god of love and beauty. This goddess is not inferior to Hecate and Athena in terms of beauty, temperament, and figure, and is even better in some aspects. As for the god of Cupid, Zeus has actually been coveting for a long time, but Hera stared too closely, and he never found a chance to make a move. Now there is no good candidate. Zeus had no choice but to let his own white moonlight help Hephaestus break through. If it wasn't for Cronus' impact on the original, imminent, he would be reluctant to do so. King of gods, what order do you have to summon Aphrodite? Salute like a god of love. She is also blonde, but compared to Hera, she has a unique charm, which is more youthful and beautiful. Zeus suppressed the impulse in his heart and said blankly, I have a very important task for you, Aphrodite, and you must complete it. The voice fell. Aphrodite immediately remembered the matter of seducing Hephaestus before, and a bad premonition floated in her heart. What task? Hephaestus. Zeus stood up, feeling very complicated, and said, this task is roughly the same as last time, but you have to do it for real. This is related to the rise and fall of Mount Olympus. You must not refuse, understand? His last mission to Aphrodite was to seduce Hephaestus. Linked with the current words, the meaning is self-evident. Aphrodite's face froze. What is a fake show? What is about the rise and fall of Mount Olympus? Translate this task, isn't it to let yourself be the mistress of Vulcan? Think of that handsome face and bright eyes. There was a throbbing in Aphrodite's heart, and her complexion became more complicated. If the task had to be done for real, she would rather marry Hephaestus. God King. Aphrodite wanted to try Zeus' tone. What's the matter? Don't you want to? Zeus immediately looked terrified. An invisible coercion swept out. Aphrodite felt a big mountain coming to suppress her head on. She couldn't help taking a step back, and said in a little panic, daughter willing to carry out this task, God King. Hearing this, Zeus put away his coercion. That's good. But, God King, if this mission must be carried out, why don't you marry me to Vulcan? I don't want to be his lover. Aphrodite, who was extremely entangled in her heart, still said this sentence. And, by God, I'm not interested. Aphrodite added in her heart. But she didn't dare to say it, for fear that it would make Zeus think she was shirking the task. No, you can't marry him. Zeus simply refused. If Aphrodite married this Vulcan son-in-law, he would have no chance again. If the two were married, he wouldn't dare to cuckold Vulcan. Why? Aphrodite raised her head and said aggrievedly. No reason. The more guilty Zeus became, the more serious his tone became. Remember, Aphrodite, your task is related to the rise and fall of the holy mountain. It is related to whether my position as the king of the gods is stable. The responsibility on your shoulders is very heavy. You must be outstanding. Finish it, understand? Aphrodite was silent. Slowly hang your head. Her beautiful eyes were covered with a layer of crystal mist. Actually, Aphrodite is not yet the god of love in the myths and legends, who was forced by the Queen Hera to marry Vulcan and then became dissolute and merciless. Now she is still a pure and flawless goddess. Zeus asked her to be a nameless, humble lover for Vulcan who would be ridiculed by the gods. Of course she was wrong. However, the king of the gods issued such an order. She couldn't refuse to say such a heavy word. There was a moment of silence. Aphrodite replied helplessly, I will obey the order of the god king. The other side, Hephaestus is on his way to the cella where Hades resides. Just now, the goddess of magic, Hecate, sent someone to send a message, telling him to go to the inner hall to discuss matters quickly. It sounded quite serious, so he had no choice but to put down the research at hand and rush over. It should be the riot in the abyss of hell, and the goddess of the night took action. Hephaestus was thinking secretly while walking. Although he has the priesthood of hell, he usually hides his whole cards and will not communicate with them. Naturally, I don't know what happened in the abyss. But it doesn't matter. Immediately go to the inner hall, see Hecate, and you will understand everything. Who? Suddenly, fragrance once. A beautiful figure stood in front of her. Hephaestus stopped at the same time. Looking away, brows slightly raised. It's this guy again. Aphrodite, what are you doing again? Hephaestus said in a cold tone. The one who came was the god of love and beauty, Aphrodite. Vulcan, what happened last time? I took the liberty, please forgive me, Aphrodite smiled. At this moment, she has returned to her smiling and charming life, her gestures, and her charming appearance. Apologizing to Hephaestus at this moment, she also exudes a soul-stirring glamour all over her body. No need to apologize. I warned you too, so we're even. Seeing this, Hephaestus didn't respond, and walked past Aphrodite unhurriedly. Treat her like nothing. Don't go yet, Hephaestus. Aphrodite flickered, and stopped in front of the blonde youth again. Moreover, Nemo flickered, did not dare to look directly at him, and said with some shame, Hephaestus, I think, is it okay to be your lover? Hephaestus froze. Did he hear correctly? What did you just say? Hephaestus asked uncertainly. Aphrodite blushed, lowered her head and repeated, I said, Hephaestus, can I be your lover? Hephaestus confirmed that he heard correctly, with black lines all over his head. Didn't he get what he said last time? This Aphrodite actually wants to be her lover. It's really strange. There are so many male gods for you to choose. Why do you keep pestering me? Get out of my way. I say it for the last time, Aphrodite. Hephaestus flatly refused. When Aphrodite heard the words, her smile gradually disappeared. She just couldn't figure it out. I have never met Hephaestus before, let alone offended. Why does Hephaestus treat her so badly? I have obviously put down my figure and face, and posted it with an extremely humble and almost begging attitude, but I was rejected. This made Aphrodite doubt herself for a while. Is it because I am not beautiful enough, or... Hephaestus, why? You hate me so much. What makes you hate me? Tell me. Aphrodite pursed her lips tightly, bullied the blonde young man, and asked angrily. Seeing Aphrodite being so aggressive, Hephaestus couldn't help laughing, glanced at her, and said, I'm sorry, Aphrodite, I didn't explain it before. I only like pure girls, so please don't pester me anymore. However, upon hearing this, Aphrodite immediately shouted, Nonsense, I am perfect. Why do you still beat me up again and again? When Hephaestus heard this, he looked at Aphrodite in disbelief. Aphrodite was a pure goddess. Nothing wrong. Hephaestus was confused for a while before he figured out the joint. In the original Greek mythology, Aphrodite was indeed a pure before marrying Vulcan. So now, he is not married to her, what Cupid said may be true. But even so, Hephaestus felt that he couldn't accept it. If I really fell in love with this slutty guy, I don't know how many green hats I will wear on my head in the future. And Hecate and Athena would definitely not agree. Furthermore, his bad impression of Eros has not changed because of the other party's perfect body. When Aphrodite saw the unbelievable eyes of Hephaestus, she immediately felt that she had suffered a great insult. Her delicate body trembled a little. However, at the same time, there is also a glimmer of expectation in my heart. He knows I'm a pure, so he should accept it. Aphrodite thought so. You belong to you, and I refuse to belong to me. I like pure girl, but it doesn't mean I like you. Don't pester me again. Okay. Hephaestus refused again. Aphrodite's self-esteem was hit hard again. Hephaestus, you are too much. Aphrodite's divine power surged out, like a volcano that could erupt at any time. She can't bear this kind of humiliation no matter what. However, reason did not let her do it. In the end, Aphrodite just blushed angrily at Hephaestus, turned and walked away angrily. Hephaestus would not coax her. It's just right when the gas is gone. Otherwise, it will always pester him. At this moment, Hephaestus took a step forward and walked towards the inner hall of Hades on his own. www. In the inner palace of Pluto, all the gods gathered. After Hephaestus came, Hecate invited him to sit beside her. They are a couple now, and the gods naturally have no objection to this. Cronus devoured Tartarus, and now he has reached the half-step original state, becoming the master of the new generation of Abyss. The gods and demons in the Abyss have completely listened to his orders since then. Fortunately, the Evernight goddess has an appointment with him, so he won't deal with the underworld for the time being. Even if you want to make trouble, it's to Zeus, Mount Olympus, we don't have to worry about it for the time being. However, the defense is still good, beware at any time. Cronus is extremely insidious, and it is absolutely impossible to follow the agreement honestly. About what happened in the abyss of hell, almost all the gods already know. Sleeping god Hypnos reported it to Hades very clearly. And Hades, at this moment, relayed it to the gods of the banquet world without any lessons. Cronus has become a half-step primordial, the lord of hell. I killed his divine sense avatar, and I have formed a grudge. Although he will not deal with the gods of the underworld, he will not let me go. Hephaestus frowned slightly, thinking to himself. Get this message. A sense of oppression arises spontaneously. But he still has time. Moreover, his growth rate will definitely be faster than Cronus. The premise is that there are enough resources to forge artifacts. Parliament ends quickly. The gods of the underworld perform their duties. The leisured Hephaestus left the cella and returned to his room. He intends to immediately start collecting materials to forge artifacts. It is best to be able to forge the original artifact. Maybe, because of this, he can also step into the realm of the original god. Even if Cronus troubles him, he is not afraid. However, the materials that can be used to forge the original artifact are so precious that they cannot be obtained by ordinary means. Hephaestus is now unable to leapfrog to kill the original god. This made Hephaestus feel a little difficult. Nyx, the goddess of the night, is the original god. After living for so many years, I might have the materials I need in my hand. I can think of a way from her. Hephaestus thought of a solution to his dilemma. He and Hades are allies, and goddess of the night is naturally in the same camp. After a good negotiation, the other party has no reason to refuse him. After making up my mind, Hephaestus lay on the bed, closed his eyes, activated the power of the priesthood, directly entered the dreamland, and went to the kingdom of dreams. He has the dream priesthood. You can enter and exit the dream kingdom at will. You don't have to go through Hypnos, the god of sleep, like Hera. The kingdom of dreams. The endless quiet night, the stars are shining brightly. A handsome figure appeared in midair out of thin air. Hephaestus opened his eyes and scanned his surroundings. It's not the same here as when he came here before. The current kingdom of dreams is more stable, and there is a powerful and mysterious force to suppress it. He who has the priesthood of dreams seems unable to fully mobilize the power in it. This is naturally the reason why the Evernight goddess woke up. The great goddess of the night, Hephaestus, god of fire and artisans, comes to see me. Hephaestus calls to the sky. The power of law permeates, and his voice echoes throughout the dream kingdom. After a while, the bright stars are twinkling, and the quiet voice of the sun comes out. Unexpectedly, you have the same authority as Hypnos, Hephaestus, you are full of secrets. Hephaestus chuckled and replied, it's just a small trick, not worth mentioning. Among the stars, a meowman figure condensed. The goddess of the night appeared, so, you really have a lot of tricks. Hephaestus, you often go to the kingdom of dreams, and this is the first time you ask to see me. What are you talking about? She knows everything in God's country like the back of her hand. Every time Hephaestus entered the dream kingdom, she naturally knew it clearly. There is a deal I want to discuss with you. Hephaestus replied. What deal? The eyes of Hephaestus flickered. Forge the original artifact. You provide the materials, and I will help you forge without any compensation, just to prove my forging skills. Oh, can you forge the original artifact? Evernight goddess was a little surprised. As long as there are materials, the original artifact is not a problem. As you know, I am the god of fire and craftsmen. In today's world, when it comes to forging, I am the second, and no one can be the first. Hephaestus' tone revealed a wave of unquestionable confidence. But, Nyx chuckled twice, shook his head and said, that's a pity, I don't have the materials to forge the original artifact, this kind of thing is too precious. Hephaestus was disappointed when he heard this. It seems that the plan to forge the original artifact to break through its own realm is going to fail. Maybe the Evernight goddess really doesn't exist. Or maybe the goddess of the night was afraid that the forging would fail and the materials would be wasted, so she refused to take them out. However, Hephaestus, I still want to open my eyes and see your world-leading forging technique. I have some top-level main god-level materials here, and you can use them to forge artifacts that are close to the original. If you want, how about I bring you the materials? The Evernight goddess continued. Hephaestus thought for a while and replied, of course. Although there is no way to forge the original artifact, but the two main artifacts can be forged, and the harvest is not cheap. He is now at the 8th level of the main god realm, and if he forges it again, he will almost reach the peak of the main god realm. This can also pave the way for advancing to the original realm. The goddess of the night nodded slightly upon hearing this. A few rays of light flew down from the bright starry sky and landed in front of Hephaestus. One is a severed limb, with majestic blood and lingering power of law, obviously the arm of the peak master of the main god. The second one is a source crystal the size of a human head, and the aura it exudes is of the same origin as the kingdom of dreams. Followed by a black sword, the blade is like a mass of flowing moyu slurry, which also exudes a dark atmosphere. But it is completely different from the breath of the Evernight goddess. At the end is a broken holy grail, which is filled with a pool of clear water, full of strong breath of life. All four things are extraordinary. Nyx said. There are only these materials, you can forge whatever you want. The water in the Holy Grail is the water of life obtained from the deal with Gaia. I used it to cultivate the pupil of darkness, which is very powerful to the artifact. The success rate helps a lot. Hephaestus looked slightly fiery, nodded and said, please wait a moment. He waved. The field of forging by fire enveloped and took away these few things. Red golden flames gushed out like a tide and began to refine. These are well-deserved, infinitely close to the original primary materials. It may take a long time for the flame next to it to be refined, but Hephaestus' divine fire and the sun's divine fire are fused together, which is extremely powerful, and it only took a quarter of an hour to complete this step. The subsequent process is magnificent, fantastic, and dazzling. The flames in the field continuously transform into various utensils, tempered, fused, and forged, which are very ornamental. The goddess of the night also saw this superb forging skill for the first time, and felt very interesting and fresh. There are also some details of Hephaestus forging, so she has to admire its ingenuity. About half an hour passed. I saw Hephaestus in the red gold flame. A black scepter and a dark crown rise from the ashes. The divinity they exude is extremely close to Nyx. Moreover, judging from the intensity of the divine power fluctuations, they are all infinitely close to the original powerful artifacts. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for successfully forging the perfect main artifact. The system rewards 2,500 years of divine power. Holy title, Knight. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for successfully forging the perfect main artifact. The system rewards 2,500 years of divine power. Holy title, Daytime. 2 artifacts took shape. Hephaestus also received a total of 5,000 years of divine power. And the 2 kinds of priestly authority on the goddess of the night. The goddess of the night has many priestly powers, such as night, day, death, dream, sleep and so on. Among them, the authority of death, sleep and dreams, she gave Thanatos and Hypnos, the gods of death. 5,000 years of divine power, I don't know if I can hit the half-step primordial. Hephaestus thought to himself, withdrew the domain, lifted the 2 artifacts with divine power, and sent them to Nyx in the starry sky. The latter glanced around and praised. Sure enough, Hephaestus, it seems that you can forge the original artifact without any problem. It's natural. Hephaestus shrugged irresolutely, and asked, Goddess of the night, I also want to ask, do you know where I can get the original primary materials? Nyx put away the 2 artifacts at this time, sounded quite happy, and replied, if you can find the broken kingdom of God, you can get the original materials, or kill Cronus, you can also get the original materials. Quote, kill Cronus. Hephaestus gave a helpless smile. If he could kill Cronus, he wouldn't have to stand here. After leaving the kingdom of dreams, Hephaestus arranged a magic circle in the room to shield the divine power wave. Then add 5,000 years of divine power and priesthood to him. After a few breaths, the mighty momentum rises violently. He was successfully promoted to the peak of the main god. And get the 2 priesthoods of night and day, 2 more powerful cards. It's a pity that this is still not half-step original opponent. Hephaestus is well aware of this. Shards of the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is broken. Hephaestus stood up, took out the fragment of the kingdom of God from the storage space, and observed it carefully. According to the goddess of the night, as long as he can find the broken kingdom of God, he can benefit from it, and then forge the original artifact. And this fragment of the kingdom of God is the key clue. I don't know where the goddess Styx got this fragment from. She might know something. Hephaestus' eyes sparkled. Think for a moment. He decided to ask Styx for clarification. In a flash, Hephaestus had disappeared into the room. By the river of hatred, a blond and blue-eyed handsome man appeared. He is tall and strong, full of masculinity. Facing the river of hatred at this moment, he opened his mouth and shouted loudly, Styx, goddess of the river Styx, come out and see her. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel.